Well, I can't tell if we're streaming or not. I believe we are. Oh my goodness. As soon as I am sure that we are streaming, currently, according to my phone, it has not yet begun. Oh, I see lots of people joining. I will mention you in a minute as soon as I can see that everything is working correctly. I'm having trouble verifying that the stream is working. If anybody, oh, I am streaming. Thank you, Stu. Oh yes, there I am. uh, Clearly, the work of an amateur on display. Well, howdy, folks. Oh gosh, let me acknowledge everybody who's here. I'm really quite astonished. Silent 700, my partner in crime when it comes to all things vintage computers, and Duke said he wanted some Duke Nukem. I'm not sure how much of that I can do for you, but I'm certainly happy to let the demo run. Stu, very glad you could make it. I know that you have obligations. I appreciate you being here. Chris, of course, one of my biggest cheerleaders. P.S. Enough. I don't think I have anything demo related I can show, but I'm happy you're here as well. And this is honestly sort of a free form, sort of agendaless thing. Sorry, let me make sure. Commander Keen's going to come up with sound. Let me make sure that I can mute that while I'm talking. Real quick. We have only the best on display here. I have to make sure I don't mute myself. It's coming through the same interface. There we go. Yes, my PC has an AdLib in it. Well, specifically a Sound Blaster 2.0. Oh my goodness, we have Clint. So happy you could join us, sir. I know your time is valuable. I'm very happy you're here. Yaris is also someone from way back. I appreciate you joining as well. So, why am I doing this? Well, I've always wanted to live stream, honestly. I wanted to see what it was like. I wanted to see if I could do certain things. Right now in the monitor, you can see the demo for Commander Keen 4 CGA working. This is, in fact, a real PC. It's right behind me. And I'll wait for the scene to change so you can see that they're both changing at the same time. And that was accomplished using an RGB to HDMI, which I will explain a little bit more in the later on, how I got it and why there's a black border and why that's important. Essentially, it's just been kind of a weird, crazy year. I accomplished a lot of things that I wanted to do. I've also had some setbacks, and I'm pulling up my notes here. I wanted to just sort of initially, for the first, let's say, 20 minutes of this stream, go over everything that I have that I've done this year, give a thanks to some people, and go over some plans for next year, and also just sort of talk a little bit about a setback or two. And then after that, it's no holds barred. I have a PC running, and it's connected to Ethernet, and I can load anything I want onto it. Someone mentioned a very rare Chinese shooter that runs in 64200. I don't think that's going to run on a 4 megahertz machine, but we'll see. And I'd be happy to take questions or anything like that. This is the first time I've ever done this. I believe my face is turning red because I'm incredibly nervous and anxious, so please try to ignore that. Hopefully my camera's white balance will correct for me. So let me just start with a huge thank you to anyone who has ever subscribed to the channel, to anyone who has supported me financially via Patreon, and anyone who's ever just said nice things about the work that I do. It can be incredibly difficult, especially during a pandemic, when you have very little contact, to get any sort of feedback or reinforcement for what you're doing. And especially for, a super small channel like me. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of other things throughout the years, but when it comes to trying to make content for YouTube, which is, of course, how you're seeing this, It's sort of I don't want to call it an echo chamber, but it's just strange. It's odd and it's strange. If I hadn't gotten into computers at all, I definitely would have gotten into video production. And I'm very happy and grateful that we have come to the point where anyone can afford consumer level equipment, even in our phones, to make stuff like this. And so people, whenever anyone's asked me, like, if I wasn't doing computers, what would it be? It would either be something music related. I was on a singing track for one point. I'm a classically trained second tenor, or it would be in video production, and I guess I'm happy to do it. So, thank you to everyone who has supported me. I appreciate it. And if you're a patron, some of your financial support has gone into this GH5S that I'm currently shooting with, and I'm extremely happy with. Which also led to the purchase of which also led me to create the video that I'm the most proud of, which I will get to in a little bit. If you are here because you have enjoyed my VHS to digital video, where I try to walk you through the correct way to digitize VHS into a digital format, thank you, but that's not the point of the channel. But I mention that because that's important too, because without that video, this channel might not exist, even though that's not the focus of the channel. I'll get to that in a little bit. The purpose of the channel is to cover, I feel it's best to specialize in something that I don't think a lot of people are doing. There are a lot of vintage computer repair videos. There are a ton of 1990s, I shouldn't say a ton, but there are, whenever someone says something like DOS games, they're almost always thinking of 1992 and later, like Wolfenstein era and later, VGA, that kind of thing. I think there's a huge untapped market for the first decade of the IBM PC, from 1981 up to and through 1990. Doesn't mean I won't stray a little bit past that, I will, but that's what I want to focus on. People seem to think that a lot of people may not realize that if it isn't something with a well-known name like a Sierra game or so on, that there's practically no gaming history prior to 1990. I mean, other than Sierra, Infocom, and LucasArts. They're like, that's it. There were thousands of games made, and multiple hundreds of commercial games made for the PC before 1990. And there were so many released that that's more than the entire libraries of some actual retail consoles. Like the Atari Lynx only had about, I want to say it was 76 commercial games, although that number is now very close to 100, which is actually kind of cool to see the homebrew scene in the Atari Lynx scene. But there's so much untapped potential, and lots of other stories and pieces of hardware to demonstrate. One of the things I really want to get to is covering hardware compression cards. I said that correctly. Hardware compression cards. Everyone's familiar with PKZip and Unzip. People are familiar with double space and drive space and stacker. There was an era where it was cheaper to create hardware compression and decompression on a board, put that in your system, and have that automatically compress and decompress data written to and from disk. I think that's fascinating. I want to cover stuff like that. So that is the focus of the channel. Unfortunately, we haven't always gotten there. So let me collect my thoughts here for a second. And I see a lot of wonderful comments scrolling, and I promise I will get there at some point. But I have about maybe 15 more minutes of notes to go through, and then I'll start reading commentary and firing stuff up on the system, which still appears to be playing Commander Keen. So what I didn't get as much done in 2021 as I wanted to. The stuff that I like to do is informative, long tail videos. I like to create things that will last a long time and be references for something. I don't cover anything topical. Of course, it's vintage computing. What topical is there to cover? It's all 30 or 40 years old. But, I won't be covering with rare exception, I don't want to cover anything that's like homebrew or new developments and things. I feel like there is a giant unmined cache of trivia in that decade, and I would like to try to cover it. So unfortunately, that means that a lot of the stuff I do requires a lot of planning and a lot of preparation and a lot of production work. And I'm happy with the results, but at the same time, I am disappointing. I don't know if I'm disappointing my audience, but I'm disappointing myself. What I want to do for 2022 is relax the production work a little bit and try to get more out there. And even though this is a 4K 60 FPS stream with a GH5S and and an AT20, whatever this microphone is, I mean, even though there's a level of production in a silly little live stream like this, it is a live stream. So this is one of the things that I'm exploring, and I want to see if this is a better format for getting more stuff out there for my audience and for my audience, and possibly reduce the burden and the anxiety of creating content. So, with that said, despite all that, what did we get done last year? I fulfilled a 25-year-old dream by finally getting back in contact with a music composer that I had lost touch with 25 years ago, with the Star Control music video, which I'm very happy with. It was wonderful to trade email with Paul and with Toys for Bob and with those guys, and the end result of the video is where I'm wondering out loud, whatever happened to Mark Brown. And wonderfully, he found the video and he commented, and that's the pinned comment of the video. And I was just so overjoyed that he had seen it and gotten recognition for his work. And it's amazing. It's still an amazing mod. It's incredible for the size it is. We also did in September-ish the Vintage Computer Festival Midwest. Clint, who hopefully is still here, and Clint from LGR, David Murray from 8-Bit Guy, who I'd also collaborated with on Planet X3. I wrote some of the code in Planet X3. And Ken, Crazy Ken of Computer Clan, who's a local person. All these people have been on YouTube for a long time. At Vintage Computer Festival, I was just absolutely overjoyed to interview them and have a little panel on what it's like to create this kind of content, what it's like to create retro-ish content for YouTube, and dealing with unexpected celebrity and stardom and so forth. And I thought that was a really great panel. You won't find that panel on my channel. You should go to the VCF Midwest, the Vintage Computer Festival Midwest channel. So that's VCF MW. And if you look for that, it should be one of the most recent ones. Oh my gosh, Ruari somehow managed to donate to me, even though I didn't think I had that turned on. Ruari is he's a good guy. I met him at Revision 2015 for the first time, and he has held his own events, although they aren't vintage computing events, they're demo scene events. I believe Sundown was his party. I'm not sure if it's still called that. Ruari, it's wonderful to see you. So, and then finally, well, I shouldn't say finally, the biggest thing that I did this year was the shrink wrap video. And it sounds really dumb that I'm making a video on shrink wrap. Like, why do that? I have been wanting to make that for years and years, and I've been waiting for the level I've been waiting for the level of video equipment that I could afford to get there. I wanted to shoot at 4K. I wanted to shoot at 10-bit so that I wouldn't, if I messed up something slightly, I could adjust it. And I finally got there. I did tons of research. And at one point I thought it was somewhat timely because we have these utterly bananas auctions going on for video game collectibles. We're starting to see it in the software collectible market as well. My personal opinion is that it is ridiculous and it should stop. It really should stop. I know that that collectibles, by their definition, have no intrinsic value. I understand that, but it is just utterly silly that people are spending 4, 5, and 6 digits for these things. Maybe they're cashing out Bitcoin or something. I don't know, but it's ridiculous. And I worked very hard on it, and I'm incredibly proud of the result. Unfortunately, it flew like a lead balloon. To date, it has less than 3,000 views, and I'm really shocked because I guess it was kind of a wake-up call for me. It was sort of like, 3 months of pre-production and production work and editing and the whole thing into a video, creating animated graphics, the whole thing, does not automatically translate to finding its audience. I thought that the console gaming world, which is 10 times, 20 times, 30 times larger than the software collecting world, would glean onto it. In fact, Jason, Metal Jesus Rocks, and Dimitri of Modern Vintage Gaming, they commented all on it nicely. MGR even tried to promote it, and nothing happened. I mean, I shouldn't say nothing happened. I mean, everyone who saw it, it has wonderful engagement numbers. People watch it practically all the way to the end, to the Q&A section, and I'm very happy about that. It's a great video, but it really let the wind out of my sails when it kind of, I don't want to say tanked, but I mean, and the thing is, it sounds silly for me to even say this because there are people struggling on YouTube who put just as much work into their stuff, and they're putting out content much more frequently than I am, and they have the same numbers or even worse. So it sounds ridiculous for me to be frustrated by that, but I was very frustrated by it. I don't know if there's a solution for that. What I think the solution is to just accept it and move on a little quickly, a little quicker, because I think that, like I said, there's a lot more in this mine to mine, and I think dropping the quality level a little bit, dropping the OCD just a tiny bit, would help. And then finally, I created a video on boot sectors. It wasn't quite the video that I wanted to make, but I had promised Justine that I would cover sector Lisp in some capacity. And I felt like covering just sector Lisp wasn't enough. I felt like in order to make it a little interesting, I should cover what a boot sector is and what makes it special and what makes it not special, because it is just another piece of code. And so that kind of grew into a thing, and that was very hard to push through because I was still sore from from not doing well with the shrink wrap video. And that was 2021. Wonderful things that happened in 2021. Clint did a very wonderful shout out during his Adlib Gold video, which got me a little over 1,000 subscribers, which is pretty amazing. It goes to show the reach of Clint's channel and the generosity of his subscribers, and that was really very nice. And that's actually that was a major push in getting to 10,000 subscribers, which is in the title of this video. So I guess I should say, surprise, this is a 10,000 subscriber celebration video. And that's about it for what happened. So what's going to happen next? Unfortunately, I am deliberately laying a little bit low in making produced videos until April. April being the time, if it's happening, I haven't seen the latest news, but if Revision 2022 is happening in person in Germany, I will be there, and I only go to demo parties where I have something to show. So that's all I can say about that. But whether it happens or not, myself and my friends need to work as if it is happening. So most of my free time is, if it isn't handling family matters, is going into Mystery Project X that hopefully will get done by April, and I'd be happy to show everybody in April what that is. But I can certainly carve out 3 hours of my time for a live stream, and so here we are. And if this is a success, maybe I'll continue. Maybe I'll do a Q&A once a month or something like that, or maybe we'll see how this goes. It's a good thing some of the comments are still coming in, because otherwise I have no idea if this is actually still working. OBS says it's still working. Josh Malone screams out 8087 miles per hour. Well, that would be cheating. We don't want to use a math coprocessor. That would make things a little too easy. I can't really talk about what is or is not happening. It's kind of like other projects where you don't want to say anything, because if it falls apart, you didn't want to get everybody's hopes up. But that's the current plan. That's all I can say. All right. Expect something nice for a computer that may or may not be in frame. Okay? That's all I can say. Actually, I did want to talk about one interesting thing. This channel has 10,000 subscribers, and it has enough views to maintain monetization. Unfortunately, one of the major contributors is a video I made in 2016, primarily for my friends, explaining what fields are in video. A frame of video has 2 fields. Those 2 fields are different moments in time. Most people don't understand this, and when they convert interlaced video to digital, they mess it up. It's bugged me for 20 years. So I made a video about it. And that video happens to tickle search engine optimization algorithms, and it remains far and away my most successful video. Year to date, just this last year, it got 25,000 watch hours. Sorry, the whole channel did. 19,000 of those watch hours were just that single video. That and another one on how to clean moldy VHS tape is another 1.6 thousand hours of watch time. I mention this because I had this goal of splitting those off into like a media archival channel, which I would make 1 or 2 videos a year on how to do scanning efficiently and make small files, and how to upload to archive.org and all these archival things. I can't split those off because without those, I am barely at the 4,000 hours of watch time requirement. So that's a little humbling. It kind of reminds me that I'm still really kind of a just barely there channel. So how do I fix that? I need to make more vintage computing and vintage gaming videos. Past April, hopefully I'll be able to do that. So what do I want to work on? I mentioned the the hardware disk compression video. I'd love to do that. I have the only commercially produced PC version of the Mockingbird. Everyone in the Apple II space knows about the Mockingbird. There was a PC version. It wasn't called the Mockingbird, but it is absolutely the same thing, same chips and everything. It was. It's called the Bank Street Music Writer card, and it came with Bank Street Music Writer. And I would love to show all of that off. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if I can interview the author anymore, but I do have some email exchanges from him that could maybe shed some light on the history of it. It is literally the rarest production PC sound card in the world because there are only 2 known to exist. I have one, which I bought at the time in 1986 with a lot of babysitting money, and the son of the person who created it. So I think that would be really cool to show off. Lots of high-res photos so people can make their own homebrew equivalents if they want, although there's only one piece of software that it drives it, so I'm not sure how useful that would be. I would still love to show off the real packages of the most pirated 1980s PC games. Everyone has played alleycat.com. Even though Alleycat was never a DOS executable, it was always a bootable game. So every time anyone has played Alleycat, they have always been playing a pirated version. I have the real package of that. I'd like to show that off. Same thing with like wizardry and whatever. I'll create like a list. And then what I'd really like to do, and I've been collaborating a little bit with Bill Hart, who's has two small retro programming channels, PC Retro Programmer and PC Retro Tech, although Retro Tech is more about the tech, and I don't think it actually covers programming at all now that I think about that. And he and I have been going on and on about 3D in early DOS games. And I would love to do a series on games that pushed the limits of the IBM PC. And I think that would be a really fun series. Each one could be a topic, like games that had the best 3D on the original PC and are still playable. You know, like I'm not going to run stunts on this thing. It doesn't run. But I can run Stunt Track Racer. Games that push the PC in terms of the kind of audio they produced through the PC speaker, or the best arcade racers, or something along those lines. And now that I have Pixel Perfect, in fact, if it's still running, I actually can't see the OBS window. Let's tell what. Yeah, Commander Keen's still running. Let's stop Commander Keen. I think he's had enough. I think he's tired. He's probably had enough time to run through the demo. I'll throw up something else in the background real quick before I start taking requests. Now that I have a way to do effectively pixel perfect captures, this is pixel perfect. The hardware, as mentioned before, is an RGB to HDMI. I have modified the CGA timings a little bit because the default timings don't handle overscan or tweaked modes. This does. Once the aforementioned project I mentioned about in April may or may not finished, if it ever gets out there, then I'd be more than happy to contact the RGB to HDMI guys and give them my updated timings where everything works correctly. Let's do something real quick. Let's go. Let's see. Is this still here? Guys, want to see a demo from 1985 or 1984? It's not a real demo because the concept didn't exist. This is something called artificial art, which draws interesting nonsense on the screen, and was actually part of a New York art installation, from what I understand, which is a little crazy. I just need to hit spacebar and make this go, and then I'll come back to my questions. Come on now, stop doing your thing. So yes, Kurt Baumann, 1986, and just go. Okay, cool. So we'll let that run for a little bit. It's not a true Cracktro demo scene demo, but whenever I was always fascinated by this. I was probably interested in the demo scene before the demo scene existed. I loved this kind of, look at that, this kind of strange, I mean, this thing's creating like abstract op art right now. Eventually it'll clear the screen and do something else, but all these interesting little graphics demonstrations trying to figure out weird, unconventional graphics things that you could do with your PC. So I'll let that run for a bit while I finish up here. So yeah, games that push the limits of the PC. Oh, where I was going with RGB to HDMI. Now that I have pixel perfect capture of CGA, I can now accurately measure the frame rate of games running on this platform. And I think that would be so cool. I mean, I was doing it before in previous videos, but it's so laborious. You do a video capture and then you single step through it, and like, let's say you have a full minute of footage, and then you single step through it and you just count, with a little timer or your piece of paper or whatever. You just count how many unique frames you see, and then you do the calculations. But wouldn't it be cool if I could run these games and have a constantly overlaid frame rate counter? Like with a graph as well, like showing, the trend of the frame rate over time. Maybe that's silly for games that hit 4 frames a second, but I think it would be cool to pit. I mean, there were almost 100 games with true real-time 3D in them in the first decade made in the first decade of the PC that will actually run on an original PC. I want to test them all. I want to find out all their frame rates. I want to battle royale, and I want to showcase the 10 best ones and maybe try to explain a little bit about why they're so fast and what kind of cool stuff they did. So that's about it for that. I actually have a topic list that is over 200 lines long. It's actually a spreadsheet, and so each entry has many lines in it. So I am never at a loss for ideas, but those are the ones that I want to tackle first. And then after that, we'll see what we get. If there's something you'd like to see, now would be a good time to pimp putting a comment in the comments. And if there's some video topic you would like me to cover, and I'd be happy to read it and consider it. And if I feel I can do it justice, then I will certainly put it into the list. My list is sorted by 5 criteria that I've added to each topic idea, such as how much research does this need, which is probably something Clint is very familiar with. You're like, this is a cool thing, and then you look and it's like, oh, it's like a rabbit hole. Is that good or bad? How much time do I want to spend on this? And also things like how much production work it would be, how much I'm personally interested in it. Has this video already been done? Which is actually a huge downer to the metric, because I don't like duplicating work other people have done, because if I do if I do worse than them, then what was the point? And if I do better than them, I feel kind of like, oh, like I didn't mean to like knock that guy's content off YouTube or something. Anyway, I've got some issues to work out. So anyway, 200 plus topics. But if you have one that I haven't thought of, I would love to know about it in the comments. I have rambled like nobody's business. Now I understand how streamers have trouble catching up with the comments, because this has scrolled so much. I don't know if I can actually catch them all, and I appreciate everyone. So I'll try to catch up. Clint has gotten so many emails from the panel. It's been fun to see those. I'm so glad that you agreed to do it, and I'm so glad it worked out. I really am. And I think, and not just because it was fun to talk to everybody and to give you guys an audience, but I feel that the information is really valid. It'll still continue to be valid for years. The nature of YouTube it changes, but the details of YouTube change, but the basic core concept of creating content on a weekly basis, how much fun versus how much creating content for profit, how to dealing with fans, both good and bad. I feel like all of that was really great. So I'm super, super glad you did it. Thank you so much. Catching up some more. Josh Malone, I feel like you've got to do YouTube for you and nobody else. I kind of agree. I think if you're under 100K subscribers, that you kind of need to. I mean, if that's what if that's what it takes, and if that's what you want to see happen. P.S. Enough said, gotta spam it like hell. Unfortunately, I don't quite remember what that was in reference to, but I think I agree. What else do we have here? Rick Dens said some very nice comments on the shrink wrap video. It was beautifully shot, wasn't it? Oh, when I go into the test your knowledge part, and just the first 2 shots of like the box moving around and the light behind it and stuff. I mean, I'm a total amateur, and I looked at that and I was like, oh, it's so glamour photos of software. I just love it. Oh, there's a guy who did something like that with his big box collection. He's a huge YouTuber. I think he's got over 1 million subs. I can't believe I can't remember his name. He had some really beautiful box shots in there as well. The content of that video was a bit of a misfire for me. He assumed that his collection of Amiga games, primarily from the UK, represented the entire industry as a whole, and he was just making up terms. And that really bothered me. Maybe someday someone can come up with some sort of complimentary piece to that. I'm not really sure. P.S. enough. Hornet World Domination at Revision League. World Domination is one of our slogans, but please don't print that. Ruari, your friend likely will be involved, and that's all I can say about that. P.S. enough, I don't think revision will be looking good because things don't look good in Germany. I kind of agree, unfortunately. Omicron strain is going through different places at different times. I hear it's ravaging Israel right now. I'm not quite sure of what's happening over here. But yeah. Let's see. VHS rips. I Heart Macs. I have some classic Macs. I Heart Macs as well. Although truly, despite the channel being PC focused, then and now, I believe in using the right tool for the right job. There was a time when I ran OS2 as my primary operating system for, I want to say, half a year. There was a time when I ran Linux on the desktop for almost a full year. These were times in my lives when I needed those various things. And so I'm not a Mac versus PC war guy. Maybe in the mid 80s, but not anymore. I Heart Macs. Did you relist the VHS rips you used to have on your channel? If so, will you upload them to another channel to avoid copy strikes? I have a great story about VHS rips and copyright strikes. At least I think it's a great story. I currently run, but I'm about to shut it down. I run a sock puppet account that has nothing to do with my name. The sock puppet account has its own YouTube channel, and that channel has VHS rips and Laserdisc rips of things that I thought were super cool that needed to be preserved or brought to people's attention. And I did it primarily to get copyright strikes and content ID matches away from my personal channel and from the old school PC channel. And for the longest time, it was disheartening to see that channel explode in subscribers and views, and it's all pirated content. And I won't name the channel because I don't want to get in trouble. And in fact, I'm going to shut it down because I realize I did something stupid. I interacted with that account and that channel, I believe, from the same network from a non-VPN network. So now there is technically evidence out there tying it to me, and I'm going to shut it down. But it was very interesting. I started it in 2012, I think, and I used it to probe YouTube's content ID system. I would speed things up. I would slow them down. I would reverse them. I would pitch shift them, leaving the time the same. I would edit them. I would re-edit already edited things. Just probing the algorithms, just probing the system. I will say around 2017, 2018, YouTube I don't know what PhDs they hired, but the algorithm's amazing. You can utterly distort audio and still have it picked up by content ID. It's astonishing. So around 2018, it was like not worth it anymore. And so I would only post stuff that would never have any large commercial studio entity coming after me or whatever, like indie films and things like that, or commercials. But the time for that is done. So I'll get that shut down. But copyright. I suppose if you want to preserve things and not have to worry about getting in trouble, you should upload your original rips, meaning your interlaced video. Like, don't even bother processing it, because in the future we may have amazing deinterlacing algorithms, much better than we have right now. Actually, we're starting to see it. I've been experimenting with some AI deinterlacing that has some cons, but it also has some amazing pros. I would upload your raw interlaced video to archive.org and let the nonprofit library organization fight your battle for you. So, let's see. Josh Mullen, big surprise. Trickster makes a demo for the PC. Hey, I heard that. Well, I used to make. I mean, I've micro optimized a dual pipelined motion blur algorithm in assembler for Pentium. I mean, I used to do those things. That demo is explicit by Hornet, if you're curious to see what that looks like. I was also proud that my motion blur, while faked, because everything in a demo is fake, looked way better than others of the time. But, all right, so why do I focus on this? Why do I focus on old PCs? Why do I write programs for old PCs or whatever? Believe it or not, it's not nostalgia. A little bit of it is, but I don't like that as an answer. I do it because I think there's a lot of value in specializing, in becoming a subject matter expert for something. I've had, and actually still have, Commodores, Classic Macs, Apple II. I've got two Apple IIes that actually might be another video. Believe it or not, I'm going to make an Apple themed video. But it's Apple plus IBM. Maybe I'll talk more about that later, but I'm actually really looking forward to doing that. But being a jack of all trades, master of none, I feel like that's not as useful as really doing having laser-like focus and concentrating on something. Plus, there's the other appeal of writing programs for the original PC and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, seeing how far you can push it, is that it's kind of like the appeal for coding for 8-bit platforms. The PC, there's not a lot of coverage, I feel, for like the early PC stuff because the PC never went away. It kept going. It became a 286, a 386, a Pentium. It became Windows 3.1, Windows 95, Windows XP, Windows 10. It never went away, and so there's no feeling of like loss. Like when you lose something and you have it captured in a little moment in time, you can you can hold it in your hands and and appreciate it, and you can, you know what I mean? The PC, because it never really went away. It didn't lose. It's not part of the story of losing the home computer wars. It won them. I feel like it just sort of slipped away, and I feel like it deserves more coverage, and so that's why I do it. Scrolling through more comments now, and let's see. PSNF screams Alley Cat. Yes. Stu, where the F did I get the original Alley Cat? I don't remember, but I do have it, and I'll prove it. Stay right there. This is the benefit of having everything organized and on shelves. I don't know how well this will show up. This is the original Alley Cat. It's incredibly rare. Yes, this is IBM's original packaging for it. I'm holding it close to my face because I have my automatic focus set to face priority, so hopefully it'll be fine. So you open it up and you get the front is essentially a picture of what the actual contents are, which is the Alley Cat disc and a small manual, and that's it. It's just a folio. And yet you cannot, and mine's actually slightly beat up, which is a little shame. You cannot find this for less than $500 on eBay. I didn't pay that much for it. I don't remember how much I paid or when and where I got it, but I just, and that was just Alley Cat. I think it would be really cool to go through a lot of stuff that people have pirated, and what did the original stuff look like? Let's see. It's interesting. Stu says the text is pretty blurry, even in HD. Well, Stu, what if I do this? Is that any better? I mean, even on my OBS preview screen, I'm seeing pixel perfect stuff here. So I think it looks pretty good. Now back to the stream. Null says, thank you for your videos. While you may not get the encouragement you want, they're great, and thank you, Null. I appreciate that. Quick story. I knew a hacker in the 90s who was quite adept at avoiding people, avoiding getting caught when he was hacking into Unix systems because he ran all his processes as the nobody UID. Like when you're okay, why is that important? Because at the time the web was just starting to take off in the mid 90s, and the web servers at the time ran as the unprivileged service account user nobody. When someone cracks into a system, you are immediately looking for what root processes don't look right here. And nobody, no, so I'm doing it right now. And people don't think to check the non-root processes, unaware that they may also be exploiting a buffer overrun or whatever it is to gain escalated privileges. And so he was a hacker known as nobody. He ran his processes as nobody, and that helped him out. When you're on a Unix system and you do ps-ef and you look at the list of processes, it's common to see some nobodies in there. That's an actual account on the system. You just don't expect rootkits to be running as nobody. You expect them to be running as root. So let's see. Oh, PSNF is asking if this demonstration has audio. It does, but it's really bad PC beeping stuff. I mean, I don't know. I guess I could. Here, let's see. I will go ahead and turn the PC speaker back on. There we go. How's that? Not much of a demo. And I don't know how to... Here, you know what? I'll leave the speaker audio on, but I'm going to stop what's in the background here. Oh, here. The keyboard's right here. Yeah, I almost didn't have this set up. Have the PC set up for me to interact with it while I was in front of the camera because I couldn't find, of all things, a keyboard extension cable, a 5-pin DIN, male to female cable. Those were common as dirt, and now I actually had to drive over to a friend's house to grab one. So funny how things change. Let's see. PSNF suggests one thing I could do maybe is make videos about the research. So I have 2 videos instead of 1. I'll think about that. I'm not sure. LGR, dude, the lighting on some of those big box shots. Thumbs up. Thank you very much. I agree. Nicola ran Red Hat in 94 or 95. I ran Slackware in 94. And I put my first website up in September of 94. So not one of the first, but not one of the last. Silent 700 always has the correct answer. Mac versus PC, it's Amiga. I totally agree. Yara says my PC 6300 should be on this channel. It actually is. My DOScember video from last year, from 2 years ago, was my 6300, where that's the system where I got 736K in lower DOS RAM. This one actually is running a similar process. It's got 704K with 694 free. And yeah, what I did was that was my 6300, and it was a total dumb excuse to use my to show off the one EMS board that was made for that system. Pirate Gamer, I agree that artificial art thing does make for a nice screensaver. Back before screensavers were a thing. Chris says Jack of all trades has worked out very well for me in my life. Jack of all trades has worked out very well for me in my professional life, but I feel that specializing is where my hobby should go. Pirate Gamer Boy, what are some of my favorite retro computers you own? I hope I'm catching up in the comments here. Oh yeah, look, it looks like I am. All right, cool. Good Lord, that... Okay, let's back up a little bit. All these comments are fantastic. Stu, I do not have a copy of Alley Cat. I have something you don't. That's amazing. That is amazing. I could have sworn you had everything I did in triplicate. Wow. All right, cool. Well, I'm never getting rid of that Alley Cat then. Um, Alley Cat, the Atari version was better. I think when it comes to almost all games on the PC, if there was a port from or to another system, obviously that port was better. Not until you got to the 486 VGA, maybe 386, but not until you got to 486 VGA, every port on every other system was better. Although I will say some ports put up a good fight. I like the Cinemaware games on PC, even though they're limited to 4 colors. They had an incredibly talented artist. What was his name? He was also the same artist who did all those wonderful animated portraits for Wasteland. Todd Kamasta, I think that was his name. The art is amazing. Actually, in the case of Defender of the Crown, the designer, Kellen Beck, fixed a lot of the balance issues that were on the original Amiga version. He fixed them in the Commodore 64 and PC versions. So I would actually argue the PC version is better than the Amiga version because that's a game that's actually fun to play. Let's see. What are some of Pirate Gamer Boy? What are some of your favorite retro computers that you own? My 2 favorites are my Pentium MMX 233. I also have one of those. It's a nice system, and my PC 9821 CS2. I don't have that. Considering it starts with PC, I'm assuming it's like an NEC PC or something like that. The Japanese line of NEC, Sharp, 68000, MSX computers, I have not been able to penetrate those. I think they're really cool, and I desperately love it when other people cover them. I think Neil of Retroman, of RMC, he doesn't like calling it Man Cave anymore. Neil of RMC did a Sharp series, I think, and I've seen some other Sharp 68,000 overviews. I've seen MXX overviews. I've never seen an NEC PC series, so please. Interestingly, some of my favorite DOS games originated on the NEC series. The ones that run in 640 by 200, originally in 8 colors. Thexter, Firehawk, Sorcerian, WibArm. All those games were originally on the NEC. But answering your question, what are some of my favorite retro computers that I own? I will always have a soft spot for the original classic Mac. I've got a Mac 512 in my crawl space that works. Because, why? Because it was consistent. Because it was definitely created as it and the software and the operating system were created as a singular vision. This is not waxing poetic about Steve Jobs. The man had faults as well as some genius marketing ideas. It's the whole team. I'm complimenting the entire team. The mouse pointer ran at 60 hertz. It was the first time I'd seen a full frame rate mouse pointer. It had a certain wonderful industrial look. So the classic Mac, I mean, PCs obviously are really my favorites. I'm going to answer non-PC just so that people have a little bit more context. Everyone thinks that because of all this PC stuff that I do that's all I've ever done. No, actually, my very first system, the first system I remember typing on that had a display and a keyboard was a serial line analyzer that my father brought home because my father was a technical journalist, and my father has 2 degrees, one in journalism and one in engineering. And he found great work writing technical manuals for companies. The perfect blend of both of those disciplines. And he brought home a serial line analyzer, and I couldn't have been more than 6 years old. And he sat me on his lap and put me in front of it, and I could type on the keyboard, and the letters I typed showed up on the display. I don't know what kind of a processor it had. I don't even know if it was running a program or if it was just displaying some dumb stuff. That's the first thing I actually remember. And if I can ever find one, that will probably be one of my favorite retro computers. And my next system was an Osborne CPM machine in 1980, although I've also played with Apples and stuff. I have some Apple II systems. I used all that. I used Apple II primarily before I switched over to PC in the mid 80s. So the Apple II line has a soft spot. I have an Apple IIe Platinum back there, and I have just a regular IIe with the Duo Drive and the color monitor. And again, I like that whole look, that industrial look that the Apple II systems had. And that's about it. You know, it's kind of hard. Everything in my collection, almost everything in my collection, was something I willfully wanted to collect. So they're kind of all my favorites. You know what? I'll give you a PC-related format. The Televideo PC. Televideo made terminals, but everybody was making an IBM PC compatible, and so they came out with one of their own. It looks like a terminal. It's colored like a terminal. It's got a goofy curved screen like it. You can look it up, Televideo PC. And I love it for several reasons. First of all, I love it because it was a gift from someone for my 50th birthday, or maybe on my 49th. Forget I said 50. Anyway, it was a gift. I didn't even really know it existed. It looks so strange. The monitor, it's all in one. The monitor is the computer, is the disk drive. It's like it's all in this one unit. The monitor tilts and swivels, and it has no fan. It is completely silent by design. They designed it so that all of the components were at the bottom of this chamber, and just like those Macs, those trash can Macs that did this, the heat would rise up and escape through the top. So it's perfectly silent. If I were to write a novel, it would be on that machine. So Televideo PC, look it up. All right. I think I'm almost done with it. If I haven't lost everybody yet, I can't check my who's watching count, and that's probably a good idea, because if it's down to 2, I don't want to be upset. But no, my first distribution, it's funny, my first distribution for Linux was Slackware, and in 1994, it was not the first Unix I ran at home. That would be Coherent, because my first professional job was with Mark Williams' company, who made Coherent Unix. So I was sheepishly, in 1994, I was triple booting my 386 DX40 between DOS and Windows 3.1, Slackware 1.2, and Coherent Unix, the operating system I had to support. And I would get my email through Coherent Unix and write it to a partitioned file system. It had to have been DOS, because I think that was the only thing that could read it all. I would boot into Coherent Unix, get my email over a modem over UUCP, and dump it into a DOS file system, and then I could reboot into either DOS or Linux and read and respond to my mail and then respond to it. Anyway, it was a very strange time. Let's see. Almost there. Superconductive, thank you so much for hosting your FTP, especially the Tandy stuff. Well, thank you. I didn't think people knew that I did that. The Tandy stuff, I was a huge fan of TV Dog and his posts on Usenet and his website and everything else. And I said, listen, I would love to mirror this. It's super useful information, and it shouldn't go away. And this was like in 1997. And that's when I registered, or 98 maybe. Anyway, it was the same year I registered oldschool.org. And I did that not only for hosting the FTP site, but also because I had switched email providers like twice, and I had permanently lost contact with some friends. And because for some reason I lost their contact address, and then because I moved, they didn't know how to contact me. And so I vowed I will always have an email address that I control. And to this day, you can still reach me at trickster@oldschool.org. Old school with a K. And I contacted TV Dog. He said, sure, you can mirror it. And then I'm glad I did, because about 3 years later, he dropped off the face of the planet. And so even though mine is technically a mirror, it's been the only source for all of those Tandy files, setup disks, deskmate programs. It's under a directory called wares, even though I don't know if you can call something wares when it's 20 years old. Funny aside, maybe I should do a video on the abandonware scene. I was one of the first 10 sites in the abandonware ring, and I saw the birth of abandonware as it unfolded in 1996. And abandonware was not the first name for abandonware. It was old wares. It was going to be called the old wares ring, and what we were distributing were old wares. And then someone thought, no, this should be a legal concept, and we should call it abandonware. It's software that's been abandoned by its companies. And I lost the vote. So now we have abandonware sites, and we consider sharing all this stuff abandonware. It could have been called old wares. So much for that. Nicola, we'll check out your video tomorrow, nearly 2 a.m. here. I totally understand. I'm very happy for anyone past GMT 0 for checking in. I know it must be midnight or later. This was the only time I could have the house to myself and have it be nice and quiet. So that's why it's scheduled. Future Q&A and live streams, if I do them, I will schedule earlier in the morning just to be more friendlier to European people. But I do thank you for coming in here. Still some wonderful comments. I guess we're still in the Q&A section before we hit requests or something. Yaris says, I just took the different approach and modded my BIOS for 704K. That was one of my thoughts. But like I said in the video that I made, if I ever wanted to revert, I gotta find the original PROM and put it back in, and it just seemed a lot simpler to do it in software. Software, like, you just push out there and it's done, and if you want to revert it, you can revert it real quickly. So that's why I did that. Although having a BIOS count past 640K looking for memory, I agree that that's probably the more robust solution. What else do we have? Juno first. Ha, Stu. God, I apologize. I think I'm 10 minutes behind in the comments. Apparently the IBM port of Juno first is the best. That's 100% correct. And Stu is bringing it up because Stu is the wonderful person who purchased it and dumped it for a software curation group to crack and release to the world. If you are playing Juno first, the PC booter version, you can thank Stu. Thank you, Stu. I don't know how much Stu paid for Juno first. I spent $300 on Night Stalker. So if you play Night Stalker, I'm not asking for money, but maybe give me a shout out, because that was expensive, but it hadn't been archived. One of the things that I'm involved with, if you support me on Patreon, you're also supporting more than the channel. You're supporting everything that I do. And one of the things I do is I am one of the curators of the Total DOS collection. And we are a dedicated group of people who are trying to preserve and format shift, although we called it cracking in the old days. We are trying to preserve, archive, and distribute every DOS and PC booter game ever made. So if you see the Total DOS collection, if you grab it, you'll see it's got over 20,000 files comprising of over 14,000 games. Did you know there were 14,000 plus DOS games, and we're still uncovering hundreds every year? And yeah, one of the missions is, we've also not only pledged our time, but our money. And if something is out there on eBay that hasn't been archived yet, we will pool our resources and get it and release it. Because it belongs in a museum. Well, no, it belongs out in the public. Let us see. What else do we have? Pirate Gamer Boy, PC 98s are by far the easiest computers to acquire. Way cheaper than FM Towns. Oh, FM Towns. God, I'm at capacity, so officially I don't have a wish list for computers. But unofficially, I would love an FM Towns. FM Towns systems are fascinating to DOS gamers because they are the same DOS games you know and love, but with 256 color graphics, even if they didn't have them before, and CD audio, and in some cases, Yamaha FM synth audio. They are these original games that came out for FM Towns a few years later and are enhanced for that system. And all the FM Towns is, effectively, at least the one I know of, is a 486 with 256 color graphics and custom sound. And always multimedia, always a CD-ROM drive. After you're done with this stream, I urge you to look up Stunts, which isn't Stunts on the FM Towns. It's the European name of Stunts, which is 4D driving. Go look up the FM Towns version, a video of it, of 4D driving, and you will be hit with a theme song with people singing. It's very odd. But it's the same music. It's Chris Hatley. I think that was his composer. It's his music. But yeah, the FM Towns. That is probably the only system I would still collect, because otherwise I am at capacity. Moving on. Let's see. Nicola says, stacker or drive space? That's kind of a funny question. Kind of like, chocolate or vanilla? Definitely stacker. I mean, I'm not a fan of Stacker's algorithm. One other thing I am is I'm a kind of a compression. I'm a low resource compression nerd. So, like I created an x86 port of LZ4 and ZX7, and I love compression and decompression on slow systems. Stacker isn't necessarily the better compression or decompression algorithm, but it is the better product. It has an offline mode where it compresses things non-real time, like you run it overnight and it'll get some extra ratio out of it. And Stacker also realizes that when something's compressed, it can be much smaller than the cluster size. So they came up with this really strange way of interfacing with DOS to put effectively multiple compressed clusters in a real cluster. That's not an accurate description, but I'm trying to describe what it is they did. It's a better product. It's just a better product. It takes up less RAM. The only downside to Stacker is that it was never free, unless you purchased IBM PC DOS 7 or IBM PC DOS 2000, in which case it came bundled. UUCP equals boss mode. I didn't feel like a boss running it, but I did have an email address that was something effectively like, what was it? It was like hostname bang, trixbox, bang trickster at uunet.uu.net or something really bananas. I found it and posted it to Twitter, but it's not worth taking time away from the stream to look that up. But yes, that was my very second email address, and it delivered technically all the way into my home, which I thought was really cool. Like I wasn't retrieving my email from somewhere. If I wanted to read my email, I had to shepherd it along modems and a serial line to get onto my hard drive. Then I could read it. Oh, the early days. Chris says, thank you for TV Dog hosting. You're quite welcome. I will always do that. I believe someone has zipped up the entire TV Dog archive and put it on archive.org as well. If someone hasn't done that, I encourage someone to leech my FTP site, the TV Dog section, and do that, just in case I fall off the face of the planet. Starlight says, we've entered the 3 a.m. crowd. I appreciate you being here. Let's see, what do we have? Oh, Cloud Chats. First of all, thank you so much for being here. Cloud Chats has done amazing sound card research work and reporting, including putting to rest the myth that I wish I could still hold on to, but I cannot, that Sound Blaster DA and AD converters were garbage, or that they were 10-bit or 12-bit instead of the full 16-bit. Cloud Chats is one of the very best sound card historians that I know of. And he has some pretty interesting MIDI stuff on YouTube. I suggest people look it up. He says that TV Dog lost his Tandy collection to a flood, which may coincide with when he went inactive. That is a shame. And I agree, his Tandy-related contributions are priceless. My goodness. Null has again, I didn't think I had the monetization thing on. This isn't a plea for donations or monetization or anything like that. It's just I just wanted to live stream and I wanted to interact with you guys and answer questions, and I thought that this would be a better way of doing it than collecting stuff and coming out with a video like weeks later. And Null has generously donated $3.86. I see what you did there. Let's see. P.S. Enough. I wonder if there's a community to swap 4D racing or stunts race maps. I'm pretty sure the internet should have one. There has been, for a very long time, a stunts appreciation society kind of a thing. I believe they still have a website. The YouTube channel Marco Plays DOS Games. My good friend Marco, who is Italian and lives in Italy, and who calls himself the best DOS gamer in the world. I am certainly not going to dispute that. He's pretty darn good at a lot of DOS games, and he streams them on his channel, Marco Plays DOS Games. He sent me a shirt. He calls me the DOS Emperor of the world. I don't know what that means, but it makes me laugh every time he says it. And he sent me a shirt that says DOS Emperor of the world on it. Anyway, I mentioned Marco because practically every week or every other week he's streaming playing stunts on his real 486. And he's mentioned it before. There is a community online. I'm sure they trade maps, and they definitely have competitions. Now, the only way to verify these competitions, you can't race side-by-side two-player in stunts. So what they do is someone will get a new best time, and they will save the replay file as proof that they did it in that time. And then, they'll trade. Essentially, it's ghosts. They'll trade ghosts and replays. So it's a real thing. Ah, yes, bang paths. Nicola, I had a 20 meg hard drive at the time and wanted to install Sherlock Holmes, which was on 8 1.4 meg discs and expanded to 20, so I had no choice but to use Stacker. Nothing wrong with that. I ran Stacker with the hardware compression board, actually, on my Olivetti M24, on my AT&T 6300. Sorry, which was the Olivetti M24. Just it was marketed as the 6300 in the U.S. Yeah, and I think I continued running Stacker on my 386 for a while. The only thing, Stacker solved a problem, but it definitely slowed things down a lot. One of the things that I'm going to do in the video where I compare hardware compression is I've come up with a way to measure the speed and the time taken by the compression and the decompression. And the claim for these products was that if the file compresses really well and the decompression is nearly instantaneous, then it speeds things up, which makes sense on paper. If you have a file that's 1 meg and you compress it down to half that, to 500K, and if the decompression is instantaneous, if it takes 2 seconds to read the 1 meg but only 1 second to read the 500K, you've now sped up your drive by a factor of 2. But in reality, it never seemed to work that way. And I think that's because the gains in that area were offset by the additional overhead managing a fake logical device in DOS. There always seemed to be a lot more seeks, for example. Defragmenting was always a pain in the ass because you could only use the defragmenter that came with the product. And some products didn't have a defragmenter, at least 2 of the boards that I'm going to be reviewing, or one of the boards. Anyway, point is, it's okay to use Stacker. So let's see. Ruari dropping off. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate that. And with that, we've come to the end of the comments, and probably with after an hour and 15 minutes, probably we've come to the end of people's patience with me rambling. But I'm really happy you're here. I plan on sticking around for at least 45 minutes. I regret I cannot check the comments easily for this video. I can only check them after the video is done, but if anyone wants to ask anything or make requests, I mean, I have the I have the system right in front of me. I mean, it's not right in front of me, it's back there, but I have a keyboard cable that's coming here. I can take requests, I can answer some more questions, so feel free to ask me anything. But if you've made it this far, thank you. I appreciate it. And after an hour and 15 minutes of talking, I'm going to get a quick drink. I heart Max. I could listen to disk compression talk for hours. Well, if I have my way, you'll get to hear it for at least 20 minutes. One of the things I also wanted to do was compare all the software stuff as well. Superstore, Stacker 1, 2, 3, 4, double space, drive space, double disk, Diet, that shareware program, that was marketed as disk compression. And I was going to do the whole thing, this huge compilation, and do it on different systems or wherever. And then I came across a text file posted in Usenet in 96. I only recently came across this text file. It was posted back in 1996. George somebody, who was Russian and had written his own shareware disk compression product, and it was the best on the market, and he proved it by doing all the research for me. He had the compression and decompression times by speed, measured in seconds or fractions of a second, whatever. There's a table posted to Usenet where, of course, his product is the best. And this falls back to my, if someone's already done it, why should I do it? I suppose that kind of goes back to the demo scene credo. There's this, it's frankly quite, it's my favorite demos. It's one of my favorite demo scene slogans. It is my favorite demo scene slogan. And it's my favorite demo scene credo, even though it's terrible, which is, and this is by Sanity, if you're not going to do it better, why do it at all? And on the surface, that sounds awesome. And that is definitely a battle cry for demo sceners. But it kind of, it has negative connotations as well. Like, it discourages people who might want to try, and then they're like, well, if I'm not sure I can do better, then why bother? That's the flip side of that slogan. So, kind of a shame. Someone says never used PC Valet. PC Valet came out in 89, and Xtree had existed before then. I don't have Xtree on here, I apologize, but PC Valet is the only shell, like here, if I want to look at something, I can quickly look at it. If I want to tag things and change their attributes or copy them, I can do that. Spacebar to tag and untag. Or you could quickly tag everything or untag everything. I don't see it. Yeah, so PC Valet was the only one that I ran that I liked. I mean, I'm pretty good with the command line. I mean, I've even installed some, command line extension stuff. Like here, I can do a version, I can do this, and then I can, whatever. I'll just do that. Do a version and then do that and separate it with semicolons, just like in Unix. I was always very proficient with the command line, but PC Valet was like 25K, so it was so small I could even fit it on a floppy disk. It was all written in assembler, and it has some DOS-based limitations, but if you're using it on an actual DOS machine, it's perfectly fine. So, like, you wouldn't want to use this on a system with FAT32 or long file names or something, but for what it is. Also, that name, I don't know if you see the name in the upper right-hand corner, John Junid, he created WinFTP or WinSCP or something like that. So he had a bigger success. But yeah, I've always loved this. Another reason I've always loved this is because it also came with a built-in hex editor. So that's fun. And it also lets you compare two files and highlight the differences between them. So, for 25K or 30K or whatever on disk, it's a wonderful little shell program. Nothing wrong with Norton Commander. It just always seemed like too much for me. I don't know. I guess it just never clicked with me. But I hold no animosity against it. Looking at some more comments. Try RS2. It's in TDC. Soft-stare game from 1990. All right, here we go. Let's go to... let's make a new directory called Stream. And let's grab it. So, our first request, RS2. I don't know this. I have never seen this. First, I have to navigate the archive section of my NAS, which is huge, until I find our official... I mean, I have access to the TDC that's work in progress. But if it was released in TDC 19, which is the official release from last year, then I shall find it. Okay, files 1990. RS2. Let's give this a shot. It's fascinating that there's a game that I've never tried before. I can't wait to see it. ZH. Help me out. What country is ZH? Chinese. That's Chinese, isn't it? Apologies. Okay. Let's do... Sorry, I'm just maneuvering it into my common area here. RS.zip. Whoops. Let's just call it RS. Okay. So you may be wondering... Now, RetroTech Chris, if he's still here, is probably... I want to say mad or upset, but probably laughing at me that I am not using Microsoft LAN Manager to mount a drive directly into DOS. It's awfully heavy for a sub 386 system because it takes up something like 120 or 150K of RAM. So what I do instead is I just do a super quick... I'm running a packet driver. I'm running Mike Brittman's amazing MTCP suite. I have a batch file that if I put something into a specific area on my network share and then I type fget, it will just do an FTP get of this. Oh, dude, compressed at 615K? That's already going to be too heavy. And the fact that it was made in 1990, that's not going to run on a 4 megahertz PC. I mean, we're going to try it. We're going to find out. One thing I would like to do is I want to make sure that if there's any sound that this produces, that my sound is turned on. So indulge me for a split second while I calibrate audio levels. Actually, I can hear that, but let me verify. Yeah, okay, so we have some background sound. I don't want it too loud. One of the problems that Stu, and this isn't slamming you, Stu, but one of the problems Stu has had with some of his streams is that he has sometimes the games are very uncooperative and it's very hard to get the audio levels right. So, all right, let's see what we grabbed. Yeah, LAN Manager. So one of my projects is a launcher for the entire Total DOS collection. And I did use LAN Manager on that, on a Pentium. And that's another video I hope to make, is showing off the Total DOS launcher. Unfortunately, my OCD is preventing me from doing so because I really, really want to finish it. I mean, it's perfectly usable as is, and it works. It works perfectly right now. But it's missing what I feel is a really key feature for research, in that search as you type in the interface would be utterly huge. I want to start the Total DOS launcher on my DOS system and have it pull from a network drive. And I want to be able to type racing space 1991 space something else, or I want to be able to type the tag for shareware and see all the shareware games, or I want to type Sierra Quest and then see how many games Sierra came out with, King's Quest, Space Quest, etc. And it also helps too, because trying to scroll through 20,000 files, even with jumping by letter, it sure takes a long time. The last game compressed that I saw that was about that size that still runs adequately on a system of this vintage was Sylpheed. So I am very curious to see what RS is, but I don't think it's going to work, or at least work well. Yaris, I have never used Volkov Commander. It's 100% ASM code. Yes, and unfortunately, I believe it requires a 386 or higher. I'd love to be proven wrong. If there's a version of Volkov that runs in regular 16-bit DOS, I'd love to give it a try. Null says, I would love to know more about how full-screen CGA scrolling worked, such as in Commander Keen. On XT-class machines, it doesn't seem possible, but they made it work. Fun fact, they did not. Commander Keen repaints the entire screen every time it scrolls. But there are some games with full-screen scrolling. The reason you don't see it in many games is because CGA has a granularity of one word as built and as using the Motorola 6845 character generator. When you increase the start address register of the 6845, it jumps. It doesn't do this on other platforms, especially 8-bit platforms that may use it, like not the Acorn, maybe the BBC or the CPC. There are 8-bit computers that use the 6845, and when you adjust the start address register, they go forward 1 byte. But and I think they do anyway, but on the PC it goes by 2 bytes. Since there are 4 pixels in a byte in CGA, when you do this, you are scrolling by 8 pixels. It's a huge jump. It's not smooth. That's why you didn't see it used. Not for horizontal, but you did see vertically scrolling CGA games. Not very many. Prohibition is one that does scroll both vertically and horizontally. Spy Hunter is my favorite example of scrolling vertically. When you scroll vertically, you have a resolution of 2 pixels. It goes by 2 lines. That's a lot easier to work with. And the best scrolling game, in my opinion, is Super Zaxxon, which is amazing. I've spoken about this before. Super Zaxxon scrolls diagonally. It matches up all of its screen updates with the position of the raster beam. And so it does stuff that looks like it absolutely must require a 2 video pages when in fact it's working with only 1, and it just uses very clever updating. Like as soon as the beam passes, it then redraws stuff right where the beam was. Super Zaxxon, amazing PC scrolling game. But yeah, that's it. When you see scrolling in Commander Keen or in Karnov or... well, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. When you see CGA scrolling like that, they're always repainting the entire screen. Karnov, I interviewed a long time ago the people who made Karnov, Quicksilver Software, and they got around dealing with CGA's architectural limitations by pretending CGA's architectural limitations didn't exist, meaning they pretended in system RAM that CGA was linear. It's actually interlaced. And that it wasn't, limited by word boundaries, only by byte boundaries. So they drew in system RAM whatever they wanted, and then they had a routine to copy the system RAM buffer into the video RAM buffer, and that routine did all of the translation and the weird stuff as it was painting. So that's why Karnov has I don't know if it has finer than 4 pixel horizontal scrolling, but the scrolling's pretty good. It's also a little slow. RS2.bat, what does that do? ASM drive. Okay. Well, hopefully this won't require... Well, let's just give it a shot and see what we get. Now, unlike DOSBox, if this hangs my machine, we got to wait 4 minutes for the thing to reboot. Okay. Now, I don't know if... oh, boy. Well, that's bad. So I'm wearing this because I can hear myself. Unfortunately, there's a delay, but I can also hear the audio, so I'll be able to adjust the audio. So let's do C for CGA. Ooh. I'm increasing that. That is unfortunate. So I do have a sound blaster in this machine, which is why you're hearing the ad-lib audio. Gotta say, not too bad. Lots of memory moving. There's no hardware tricks here at all. An act. Act 1. That's a shame. They could have done that much better. You don't erase and repaint all the time. Okay, wow. I don't think I'm controlling it. It is moving by itself and firing by itself. And you know what? That's fine by me. Because it's doing a way better job than I could. And in fact, I'm not even going to listen to it. That is interesting. Normally you don't erase and draw on the same video page. People would... That's... Okay. I applaud what this game is trying to do. It looks like it's a very competent shooter. I would love to run this on a system with more than one video page and maybe a slightly faster system. It looks like it's doing everything right. It's just... It's just trying to do too much for this system. I don't know. See, when I look at something like this, I think to myself, could I do this better? No, because it's trying to repaint the entire screen every frame with a static background, a parallax foreground, and the hills in the middle. And because of that, it looks like either I died or it crashed. We got to 250 frames. I love that frame counter at the bottom. Ooh, look at that. Transform. This is a spiritual Robotech. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's the enemies that are transformed. Very interesting. So the flickering is occurring on the actual hardware. This capture you are seeing is identical to what it is. This stream contains authentic CGA output. It looks like this on the real hardware. If you don't believe me, here. See? I mean, I know it's blurry, but... So normally what CGA games do when they're trying to do stuff like this is they do all this, but they do it in system RAM. Then they copy the system RAM to the video RAM. That way, when they're doing all the draw and erase, you don't see it. It's actually very strange that this game is doing this for CGA. There are hundreds of games that came before it with better examples, so I don't actually understand. PC Retro Tech, I wonder... Wow, hey! Bill is here. PC Retro Tech, I can't imagine what time it is for you in Germany, but I appreciate you popping in. I wonder if it has color composite output. Well, one easy way to tell is to look for those... I mean, you know this as well as I do. I'm explaining for everyone else on the stream. It says it looks blue on the computer behind me. That's because... Okay, I'll get to that. Let me answer Bill first. Composite CGA is done with patterns as the beam scans horizontally. So if you want to change the color, it's generally a vertically oriented pattern. So what you're looking for are bars of patterns. If you've ever played Earthworm Jim on the Genesis, there's a lot of that, and it definitively answers if Earthworm Jim had its graphics created intending for the composite connector, not the S-Video connector. It definitely did, because those patterns blend into more colors and transparent colors. Just looking at this screen, and in fact I'm going to make it easier on myself by going full screen here, I can see patterns, but as you are seeing, as I am, that they are 50% dither patterns or something. They are not they're not vertically oriented horizontal patterns. Boy, this game's ambitious. It's such a shame that their rendering method is garbage. Which I'm sure they did for speed. I mean, if you don't ever copy to system RAM, if you just build everything there, then no big deal. But I mean, you know, you're not supposed to be seeing this. This is how the sausage is made. All this draw, erase, draw, erase, draw, erase. That's supposed to happen in system RAM. You know, early BASIC games did that, but that's because they didn't know any better. It was a very common technique in the early 80s to do animation by plotting something and then exclusive ORing what you just plotted with the same thing, and then that would erase it, and then you would plot it again, and you'd wait some time so that the user could see it, then you'd plot it again, exclusive OR, which would erase it, and then you move it again, and so on. Oh wow, we get an Act 2? This is the best game demonstration I've ever given. I don't have to touch a thing. Very ambitious. So I have a lot of respect for what they were trying to do. I just find it utterly bizarre that they chose to do it in this way. That's very strange. So to answer PC RetroTech's question, you can tell just by looking at it, it is not composite color optimized in any way. In fact, the fact that they use alternating dither patterns, like these 50% dither patterns, you know, where the dots on even lines are shifted over from the dots in the odd lines. If I were to force this into composite mode, which I can do, we would actually see colors alternating by solid lines down the screen for where those 25, 50, and 75% dither patterns are. So much for that. Let's see. Pirate Game Boy, you use the arrow keys and right shift to shoot. I'm not going to try, but thank you for suggesting it. I'm fascinated at how ambitious this is, and I'm actually quite astonished that they thought this was shippable. Sorry, let me back up. I'm sure it's a perfectly great game on better graphics hardware and faster systems. But when this is the end result, see, even a faster system, it would still look goofy because this is how they're rendering for CGA. A 286, a 386, it would still look like a flickery weirdo mess because of their CGA rendering method. And I look at this and I think to myself, well, why even ship that? Just take the CGA support out. No one's going to play it like this, even on a faster system. Very strange. Honestly, I think when I look at this, I think this is like a debug mode. And I think they never finished it. I think they did all the rendering as I would do. I think they did all the rendering on screen to check it. And then they thought, okay, for the final version, we'll do it in system RAM. We'll just copy it up to video RAM. And they just never did. Very weird. Looking back at some more comments. Demon Stalkers or Fire... Oh, Cloud Chats. God, I'm so sorry I'm behind in the comments. Demon Stalkers is perfectly playable on a 5150. In fact, my brother logged tons of hours in the 1980s on our AT&T 6300. Now, I know that's an 8 megahertz 8086, but they definitely wrote it for and targeted a 4 megahertz 8088 because the title music in Demon Stalkers is a multi-voice through the PC speaker synthesizer routine, and on our faster system, it played way too fast. And I've tried it on, the the system behind me, and it runs, and the sound, the audio is perfect. So if they wrote the music routine to only run correctly on a 4 megahertz system, then clearly they wrote the game for and tested it on a 4 megahertz system as well. Demon Stalkers is, for those who don't know, is a Gauntlet clone that comes with a level editor. And I think a maze generator. So that's pretty cool. So this is awesome, this RS2. I am going to explore that in some other way. I can't seem to get out of it. So we try Control, Shift, and Alt, Q, E, and X. Nope. F10. Nope. 3-finger salute. Nope. Time to hit the switch. The big red switch. Let's hope I didn't bork my video. Nope, there it is. So yeah, Demon Stalkers is very fun. I used to play it with an analog joystick, and I never completed it, but it's really great. Sorry, scanning some comments here. Pirate Gamer Boy, Round 42 is a much better performing shooter. Yes, it's more fun. I love Round 42, but I've never finished it, and it's not for the reason you think, like it's too hard, or I was playing it on a system too fast, although those are contributing factors. My problem with Round 42 is that, unfortunately, there is a bug in the keyboard handler, and keys will stick. And I don't want to be on my last life with no more smart shots available, and only one enemy left to kill before I win the game. And sorry, and I hit right arrow and it just keeps going right. So I tried to track down the person who made Round 42 and to try to get his Turbo Pascal source code and like fix the bug and recompile it. But I never found that person, so oh well for that. But Round 42 is great. Round 42 is another one of those programs that shaped my hobby focus, in that it was like, wait, software can create new video modes? It was, it's the same thing as when I first heard digitized sound out of the PC speaker. Like, what, if you just bang it hard enough, you can make actual sound out of it? I mean, these are amazing, amazing things, and it kind of shaped my whole hobby. Still checking. If you've commented and it's scrolled way past and I have missed it, please comment again. I won't take it personally. Also, this is streaming in the highest quality mode, which means the latency is through the roof. I think it's 30 or 40 seconds. So if you post something and I don't respond for almost a full minute, please don't think I'm ignoring you. There's just a super high latency. Thankfully, there's no latency here on my end. There's only 1 or 2 frames of latency between the OBS stream and the actual system. So I can totally play games on this, which is really cool. Oh, I'm sorry, I exited it. Kunzan said, what would it look like if you forced it to composite mode? Not totally sure I want to go back into it to do that. But I can tell you what it would look like. Each alternating line. Well, okay, you know what? Fine. Do we have any other requests? If not, I will go back into that game and force it to composite mode. The worst part of the game is the locked, choppy performance. That's a shame. So that verifies my theory that they did do all the repainting on screen and then they just delayed for a fixed time interval. And yeah, that's not, I mean, that's how we used to make basic games. You'd put something on screen, you'd wait, and then you'd quickly erase it and put it back up and hope that that was fast enough that people wouldn't notice. You can't do a whole commercial game that way. Let's see. Oh, Control Q quits, but you have to be in the game. But I couldn't get out of the demo mode, so that's how I had to bounce it. CP Rasu. Just wanted to tell you, back in the day, 8088 corruption blew my mind. I still remember loading it on my 286. Ooh, high roller. Just to make sure everything would work. Well, thank you. It was my return to the demo scene. It was a silly, dumb idea that I had, and I'm glad you found it enjoyable. I certainly did. Have massively improved on it since. More than what I've released. But the world does not need a fourth or a fifth video on a PC production, at least not yet. Yaris, I use 4DOS on my main DOS PC. This is actually not 4DOS. I mean, okay, it is. It's 4DOS version 4, I think, as bundled with Norton Utilities 6. Why am I still using NDOS instead of 4DOS? Because every time people would tell me to use 4DOS, I would grab, like, that's old, you should use real 4DOS. I would grab the latest shareware version, the latest open source version, whatever, and it would always hang. And I think the last final version, the one where even the source code has been released and whatever, I think that might work, but you know, it's called NDOS. This has just worked for me for 3 decades now, so I just keep using it. But it is 4DOS. I mean, you can tell I've got like built-in aliases, for example. That's a 4DOS feature. So there's that. Yaris, you don't have to try NDOS. Like I said, it's just 4DOS version 3 or 4DOS version 4. The site where you can get the latest 4DOS has a version history, and I think it lists which one it is. It's just convenient. Like for some, like I worry about finding a version of 4DOS that works on this hardware, but I never worry about finding my copy of Norton Utilities 6 and throwing it on there, so I just do. Josh has to hit the sack. Thank you so much, Josh, for joining in. I appreciate you. I appreciate all your nice comments over the years. Let's see. CP Rasu, getting it onto the 5150, getting software onto the 5150 using interlink and interserver with a parallel cable. I have also done that. Fun fact, the people who wrote interlink and interserver are the same people who wrote Fastlynx, Fastlynx, which is a better program for transferring the files, but most people don't use it because A, it was a commercial product, and B, it doesn't... Oh, wait, actually, I think it does spawn a drive letter. Well, anyway, it was Microsoft that licensed that functionality to become interlink and interserver. I like Fastlynx because Fastlynx does... it has fancy displays, a Norton Commander-like interface with remote on one side and local on the other, and it does compression with a specially wired up parallel cable. I remember doing ludicrously fast transfers between systems. So I hear you. Let's see. An ST251 that was in the middle of dying since the ST225 wasn't big enough. The ST225 is the Seagate 20 megabyte MFM hard drive, and they are tanks. All my ST225s still work. I love that thing. The ones I've seen that don't work, you usually have to open them up, remove and replace the sticky goo rubber stop where the head stops when it hits when it recalibrates. Oil the bearings, put it back together. You're done. It still works. I don't know why this 251s break down a little bit more than the 225s. They have an extra platter for 40 meg instead of 20 meg, but I love those things. Does anyone else find it funny that even now, when people walk into a computer room or a mainframe room or something, you hear either Macintosh, classic Mac floppy disk drive seek noises or ST225 seek noises? It's silly. There shouldn't be any noise at all. Or if there is, or if they really want to do a computer room accurately, the noise should be deafening from all of the air conditioning. My day job is a Unix systems engineer. I go into data centers and because I have to troubleshoot something with our setup sometimes, and it's loud as hell. That's what they really sound like. But of course, you can't portray that in a movie or a TV show because then you wouldn't be able to hear anybody. Pirate Gamer Boy says, you can instantly switch between composite and RGB capturing. I can indeed. So how can I do that? I am using an RGB to HDMI. The specific model that I purchased was from Texelec. Texelec is a company out of Texas, as its name would imply, run by Kevin and his wife. And Kevin has produced a cheaper RGB to HDMI pre-built unit that ditches the analog support, but it comes pre-assembled and it works out of the box. Now, having just now said that, he's out of stock. I think he's out of stock, but you can sign up to get notified once he makes more. There's nothing special about his. I just have been super happy with his specific version, and one of the reasons I like the RGB to HDMI hardware at all, I have been trying to capture CGA accurately for decades, easily since the early 2000s. Can you see it? Oh yeah, you can. I have a Sony DSC-1024 scan converter. I tried with that. It does mandatory field blending, which pissed me off. I have, in a PC you can't see here, I have an Epiphan DVI to PCIe card. I got much closer with that. I also have these, I want to say Microcom, whoever makes the, the XRGB scan converter units, the Japanese company. I have one of those. It also gets pretty close, but the RGB to HDMI just works. It runs fast enough that it can sample the signal and average it to get effectively pixel perfect output, which I have over here. And they also, because they know the capture is pixel perfect, they can overlay crude but effective composite color filtering. So let's run the CGA compatibility tester, and I'll pull up a composite color test pattern, and I will show you what it looks like. Now, unfortunately, I just noticed today that I broke in my latest update to this. So yeah, I broke it. Let me find a different one. In my latest update, I broke. No, come on. Ah, shucks. There's never a color composite CGA test when you want it. All right, I have a treat for you. I believe I still have the Commander Keen composite CGA hack mod on here. So let's run that. This hack done by Vile Rancor, or Viler, who was also one of the 88 miles per hour team. He did all the art, and he co-invented the 1000 color mode along with Reinigni. This, I believe, I don't think this is the final version of the patch, but it should suffice to show you what it looks like. Oh, no, it's doing the... Okay. All right. Let's see if this is indeed what I thought it was. It is. So, vertical bar patterns. It must be composite, right? Let me go into the menu, and I have to go full screen on this or I won't see the whole thing. So yeah, see how these patterns are vertically oriented? That's your signal that you've got composite CGA or composite color artifacting going on. The RGB to HDMI in its most current updated firmware will allow you to, I think it's in the palette menu. Yes. Go to the palette menu, choose what kind of paletting, CGA NTC artifact. You can also pick the degrees of phase. This is great for matching up an old school CGA card, a new CGA card, or a Tandy system. They all have different phases. And when you turn it on, boom. Isn't that amazing? I love the RGB to HDMI. Now, this is only possible. So they're literally emulating composite CGA using the RGBI TTL output. It's not true composite, but it's close enough, and it's only possible because pixel perfect sampling is achievable with this unit. So that's why this works, and it isn't a shimmery mess or very strange. Looking at some comments now. PC Anywhere. I never got to use that. I was always using Fast Links or some other solution. ST225 noises are in a lot of movies and TV, and also that one mini scribe they put into, yes, exactly, in a Mac SEs. I was watching something modern, like, and by modern I mean like it was made 5 years ago, and I heard those noises, and I was like, you must be kidding me. What mega old Foley library is somebody pulling into to grab these super old things? Nicola, does anyone remember Second Reality? I remember being godsmacked by it. Oh, yes, believe me, I do. I was that was close to the heyday of my demo scene. I started in the demo scene in 1991. I mean, a few days left into 1990, but let's just call it 1991. And followed all the releases. And Second Reality, to people who had never followed or seen the Amiga scene, Second Reality blew everyone's minds. And one of the things that when I say people who aren't familiar with Amiga, there are a lot of effects in Second Reality that are clearly inspired by Amiga demos. The rotozoomer, the bouncing magnify ball, the whole concept of 3D landscape flybys, that had been an Amiga. All this stuff had been done in Amiga demos previously. But what Second Reality did was they improved those effects for the PC in ways that the PC was good at, including the sound. The sound is 8 channels. It's also composed very well. The Amiga only had 4 native channels, and while you could mix multiple channels to make music, no one ever did it in demos. So it had 8-channel, very well composed music, and even though some of the effects had been seen already on Amiga, they were they were upsized. They were 256 colors instead of 32. They were rock solid 70 frames per second instead of 25 or something like that on the Amiga, because the Amiga wasn't powerful enough to run them at the full frame rate of 50. So yeah, Second Reality was amazing. I could talk about Second Reality a lot, but I think it's also been talked to death. If you want to see some early pre-release versions of Second Reality, there is a video on YouTube called The Making of Second Reality, and it has home video footage shot by some of the people, and you get to see these early versions of it, and some of it looks quite different. It's kind of cool. Oh, I started this and I don't remember if what the sound is. I'm sorry. What is the sound in the demo? Is there any sound in the demo? My bad. Let's fix this. Oh my gosh, if I apologize if that PC speaker sound was drowning me out. I'm very sorry. Let's put it on ad-lib. That's nicer. Let's do no sound effects, and let's do ad-lib music. Okay. Let me check the mix here. Very sorry about that. If something is inaudible or too loud, please let me know. We have currently been streaming for 2 hours. I see more comments, and I'm having a fun time. So we're going to do this one more hour, and at the 3-hour mark, I will stop it. So that would be 10 p.m. my local time, which is GMT minus 6. Okay, that's better. Let me increase the ad-lib music a little bit. How's that? Okay, I think that's nice, and I think I'm audible. But if I'm not, let me know. Starlight says, I've been cursed with the ability to identify hard drives by sound. That is a blessing, not a curse. Also, I can identify some software by the sound it makes in the floppy drive. I also consider that a blessing, not a curse. For example, if you were to boot any Electronic Arts booter game on the PC, I could immediately tell that's what you were starting, because their copy protection and their bootloader all have the same sound. And it sounds something like, I can't believe I'm doing this. It sounds something like chunk, 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 chunk. And then it stops for a while as it spins on track, I think it's 15, and it tries to analyze if the protection is intact. And then it starts up again, chunk, 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 and then it reads the rest of the disk. In playing Wizardry on the PC, I learned how to avoid getting killed in Wizardry by listening to the floppy drive. If you kick down a door and it immediately draws the room, then you're good. But if you kick down a door and suddenly the drive goes chunk, 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 or something like that, you're like, oh, it's loading monsters. And I would rip the disk out and save myself from dying. Because the longer it would load, the more monsters it was loading up, more portraits, more monster portraits. So after the first 3 seconds, I'd be like, this party's too big. And I'd dive for the floppy drive and rip it out. And that's not something most emulation can give you. CP Rosu says, Epic Pinball had a few programmers from that demo group. Actually, they did not, but they did have one musician or two. I think it was both Skaven and Purple Motion from Future Crew composed music for Epic Pinball. But I don't believe any of the... Well, okay, I'm going to go back on that, actually. It is possible... You know what? Only MOBA Games can answer this. But I am not going to leave the stream for MOBA Games. So there we have it. Go into MOBA Games, look it up, and you can verify who the programmers were for that. Epic Pinball was great. I did not totally get into Epic Pinball. I was much more of a Pinball Fantasies fan, because Epic Pinball really required a 3D6 or higher, maybe even a 46 or higher. But Pinball Fantasies was definitely created by the demo group Space Pigs. First true proper demo I ever watched, and their music mixing engine was amazing, and the game runs perfectly on any 286. That's all I can say. It's just fantastic. Excuse me a second. Pinball Fantasies being a port from the Amiga, and it looks just like the Amiga version. It's really quite astonishing. Oh, who said... Sprite, did you know the sources of Pinball Fantasies have been released? I did not know that. I was in contact with one of them 2 years ago, and I said I'd love to see the source code, and he actually sent me some of the source, but if they actually release the whole thing, that'd be fantastic. Oh, cool. All right, we'll go look that up after the stream. Stu says, this is incredible. Stu, were you not aware that there was a composite CGA complete graphics replacement for Commander Keen? If not, now you know. Starflight does look great in composite CGA. Speaking of release sources, this was done almost 20 years ago, and I only recently found out about it. The people who made Starflight released as much of the source as they could find, along with a lot of design documents that they digitized and scanned into PDF. It's fascinating reading. There are design documents from 1983 proving that, I mean, unless they faked the year on the dot matrix printout, but why would they? Proving that Starflight was indeed in development for 3 solid years before it came out. The source is a mixture of forth and assembly. It is God's unholy creation. It's nearly unreadable, in my opinion. But I take that back. It's more readable. It might be more readable for me than others because I can easily recognize the assembler opcodes mixed in with the forth and mentally remove them. But oh my goodness. Pirate Gamer Boy. I find it odd how the first 3 Commander King games require a 286. I have an interesting answer for that. And I got it from John Romero himself. Commander Keen, the first 3 games, were heralded as amazing technical wizardry to do scrolling at the full frame rate on EGA. And they are amazing, and they do full screen scrolling on EGA, but they don't do it in the way that you think they do. And the reason is because, every programmer, I mean, John Carmack is amazing. This is not meant as a slam on him. He was breaking new ground where there had been no broken ground. So it's not how well the bear dances, it's that the bear dances at all. The first 3 Commander Keens copy the entire frame on every refresh. At least I'm almost positive that's what John told me. And I thought, normally, you scroll to the side, you repaint only that side. No, they were repainting the whole thing. They would just smooth scroll over and then start repainting from that offset onward. And that's why it really required a 286, because it needed the speed to do all that. Keens 4, 5, and 6 use a different engine. That engine is indeed intelligent. It scrolls for EGA, it scrolls over just a little bit, and it repaints only what it needs to. For the CGA version, it is doing that virtually in system RAM. It paints only, if you scroll to the left, it only paints the new column on the left, and then it copies that whole thing to the screen. So that's a bit unfortunate, which is why this is running as slow as it is. However, right now in this demo, when you see it scrolling up or sideways, only the new tiles on the top or the right are being painted. And so it acts as a virtual window across roughly 2 screens in each direction, if that makes sense. Still a great achievement. And it proves that Carmack knew what the correct method was because he implemented it for 4, 5, and 6. Which is why the CPU requirements went down. Nicola, do I have a Discord? If not, why not? Technically, I have a Discord, but I don't go on Discord that often. In the year 2000, I almost lost my job because I was addicted to IRC. I was on IRC all the time. It was always open in a window. I would do IRC instead of doing my job. And I gave it up cold turkey, and with rare exception, I don't do that kind of live chat anymore. There are times when I'm on Discord, but there's a vintage YouTuber Discord, which is nice. It's people who make content for vintage computers and vintage consoles. I'm on the vintage, there's a classic computer talk Discord, and I'm on that sometimes, but it's only when I'm like bored or have nothing to do. I don't do it every day. But it's a nice comment. So thank you for suggesting that I should have my own Discord. I actually, as an archivist, I have a fundamental problem with Discord. Any information shared in Discord is not only locked into Discord, but isn't searchable across servers. So you could never find information in server A if you're sitting in server B, and and Discord isn't open. So if someone destroys your server, or Discord itself goes away, but that's very unlikely. That's not going to happen. But if someone kills the server by accident, all that information is gone. I think Discord is fantastic for discussion, but it really upsets me that there's no way to search it publicly. If I'm wrong, please tell me. But I don't think I'm wrong. Putting information... YouTube's not much better. I mean, I like YouTube because it's an entertaining way to share information. And it's somewhat searchable. But really, the king is metadata, and the best metadata is text searches that you can find in Google of web pages. And so, I feel like that is where most archival efforts should concentrate on. Or at least some public searchable interface to the data. But yeah, like right now, if someone on Discord posted in some server that I'm not a part of, Thexter, Thexter ported to Commodore 64. I don't know, and I'm making something up. How would I find that? I wouldn't. I don't think so. Ha! Stu, my dad would yank out the floppy if he died in wizardry. Great minds think alike. Thank you for confirming that epic pinball in a 386 was a little rough. Let's see. Phantom of the Flopera? I have never heard of that. If it's another one of the floppy arrays all buzzing a different note or something, I've seen... Those are fun, but I've seen enough of those to last a lifetime, so I don't need to see more of those. I'm more intrigued with the Commodore 64 1541 drive music. I thought that was really cool. Let's see. Oh, I see. That's what we're talking about, having to realign a floppy drive and how much music was created by doing so. That's also along the same lines of creating music on an HP SCSI scanner. I believe there's still videos of that up. That was something I think intentionally built into the HP scanner firmware. This is 1990s we're talking about. Cloud Chats, how much did the delays in the AdLib output routine contribute to the overall slowness of Keen here? Not very much at all. Believe it or not, even though Keen is really slow here, it's actually running great, because if you look at the screen, it's constantly refreshing when you're scrolling. Unfortunately, it stopped scrolling. There we go. Scroll. It's constantly updating. That means only the bare minimum of updates in the background are being done before it wants to repaint a new screen refresh. If AdLib were really slowing it down, I mean, I could go ahead and switch it back to PC Speaker, but it's effectively the same. So now that's Commander Keen. Commander Keen's music engine runs at something like, I think it's a multiple of the system timer. I believe it's 18 times 2. I think it's 36 hertz. Now, if you were running something like MIDI music converted over to AdLib, I believe MIDI's, you would know more than I, isn't MIDI 120 hertz or 100 hertz? That might cause some bit of a slowdown, but in terms of Keen, right now, it's just simply the speed of the machine. The engine is so good that the major limiting factor right now is the bandwidth, or rather lack thereof, of copying system RAM to video RAM. Stu is asking, Pound Old Wares, was that the name of the channel? There was an IRC channel called Old Wares. I did frequent it in 95 and 96. It was a way for the burgeoning, the then emerging abandonware movement to grab files, and also probably where I thought abandonware should be called Old Wares. But that wasn't the channel, actually. It was actually Demoscene and Demoscene coding channels. And I love my Demoscene, but When my manager pulled me into his office and was like, "You're one step away from getting fired," it put the fear in me, and I quit it cold turkey. So I'm glad I did, because I'm still gainfully employed. Not at the same place, but still. Discord is indeed the new IRC. And unfortunately, information shared on IRC has the same permanence as information shared on Discord. Discord has the advantage in that it is searchable if you're on the same server. Dedicated individuals keep IRC logs, but that is, of course, not the same thing. But really, neither have the same permanence, which is really a shame. There is a way to use Discord and IRC, Chris. And actually, the vintage computer is... I'll have to... unfortunately, I don't have the server in front of me, and I don't want to look it up right now, but the Classic Computer Club Discord server does that. There's an IRC channel, and then there's the Discord server, and there's some robot running that passes the messages back and forth to merge them. There it is. CP Rasu. The cool thing about early HP scanners is that you could do a self-test with music. Yes. So they built it in there on purpose. But you could also send it SCSI commands to send it notes. And so you could play a tune with your scanner, even if you weren't scanning. So I thought that was great. Well, we've hit the end of the comments. There's roughly 45 minutes of the stream left. I'm going to cancel this, and I will pick something random unless somebody has a suggestion for what I should be running. I can't guarantee it's going to have any... You know, what I'll do is actually, maybe I'll show... So now that I'm back in TTL land, I should fix this. Let's see if I can do it without switching my screen. It's the palette menu, isn't it? Yes. That's better. Okay, back to RGB land. Interface. It is very slow on a PC. Interface is really cool. Interface is definitely going to be one of my top 10 games that pushed the limits of the IBM PC when it came to 3D code. It was coded by Andy, last name escapes me, of the assembly line, someone out of the UK, and they did great stuff. And his 3D only got better and better, cultivating in Stunt Island. And Stunt Island requires any 386, and that's fine because they were trying to do much more complicated stuff. But the 3D is still no slouch in Stunt Island. And what's more interesting, I only recently read this, that one of the major issues with rendering in Stunt Island was managing all of the data. So he had created some sort of data. It took him more than a month to come up with some sort of data structure or data structures for managing automatic level of detail, so that if an object was far enough away from the camera, I'm assuming on the Z-plane, although I could be wrong, if an object was far enough away from the camera, it would traverse that data structure to get there in a fixed period of time to get the low poly objects. And when it was closer, it would still only take the same amount of time to traverse the structure, but end up on the high poly objects, because if it's closer to you, you want to see more detail. I am fascinated by 3D on these slow systems. I think it's one of the coolest tricks ever. And Interface is a great thing. You know what? What the hell? I'll run it now. Interface is a really great thing to run when you want to show... Do I have it here? Uh-oh. I have a little, game tech directory. Nope, it's not there. Where if you're curious, games that I find interesting from a technical standpoint on 88 with CGA. Ajax is a helicopter shooting game which updates the screen very rapidly, much like Commander Keen. I don't remember what that is. Bob Winner is sort of an odd French game that uses an odd palette, but it also scrolls smoothly left and right. Deep Space has very fast 3D. I don't know why Die Hard's in there. It has very slow 3D. Well, it's fast 3D, but it's slow on this system. Oh, F40's in here because this is a cool way of revealing the title screen. Flight Simulator 4 needs no explanation. GP 500 has some amazing music, etc., etc. But let's look for interface. Don't I have interface on here? Could have sworn I had interface on here. Was I testing it? That's very strange. I could have sworn. Why would I not have interface on here? Oh, I think I know why. I removed it because my version was corrupt. It still ran, but the graphics were messed up, and so I thought I would always put it back. Well, I could work on showing interface, but if someone has, it only runs at about 4 frames a second. I mean, for what it's doing, 4 frames a second is amazing, but it only runs at 4 frames a second. So if someone can think of something else, I will do it. Wolf 3D, not on this hardware yet. That's all I'm going to say about that. Have I tried an M32 Pi? I have not, because I'm lucky enough to have 2 LAPCI cards. I used to have an MT32, and I gave it to a friend, another Total DOS collection collaborator. I have heard and seen examples of the MT32 Pi, and I think it's wonderful. I think it's very cute, and I like the fact that it has a tiny little LED screen for the literally handful of games that produce custom messages on it, but I think it's very cute, and I think it sounds just fine. I am actually not qualified. Cloud Chats, if he's still on, he's very qualified to determine if the MT32 Pi is accurate, or sounds accurate, or behaves accurately. I am not, but I think it's nice. Chip's Challenge is playable at 4 megahertz. I believe that. It's a very simple tile game when it comes down to it, and the scrolling doesn't need to be smooth in that game. The game is technically real time, but it doesn't have to be. Like, it's not an action game. Like, you can move a tile and sit and wait. And in those types of games, coarse scrolling by 8 pixels at a time is perfectly fine. So I can totally understand that. Stu has to leave. Thank you, Stu. If you're still here, I know that there's a massive delay between when I see these questions and answer them. I'm very glad you're able to join, and I could return the favor. Stu, by the way, runs Stu's Game Reviews. And if anyone is still here and listening who isn't subscribed to Stu's Game Reviews, I suggest you look him up, because he does a different game, I want to say 2 or 3 times a week, and it's a live stream. And Stu is a good sport, because when he makes very silly decisions or plays very badly, we get to mock him, and he's cool with that. Stu's a cool guy, so please subscribe to Stu's Game Reviews. Null, that CGA Snow. Man, you want CGA Snow? You ain't seen nothing yet. I mean, okay, sorry, that's not snow. But if I run Nancy, now check it out. Snow! And that's real snow. Actually, I put a snow routine into the CGA compatibility tester if you want to see, because I know how to, whoops. Let's get back into color mode. It's funny, some games will exit, and they'll put the system in a state where the BIOS thinks that it's mode black and white 80 instead of color 80. I always thought that was a strange bug. Some games do it, some don't. Because I know what causes CGA snow, I know how to avoid it. I also know how to deliberately cause it. And I put a CGA snow routine into the CGA compatibility tester. So we can run that for a bit. I have tried to see if I could manipulate the nature of the snow, change its color, change the characters. It's not really possible, because it requires timing that is outside the granularity of the operation of the CPU. Snow occurs on original CGA cards and some clones because the memory is not dual ported, which means the CPU can access the memory or the card can access the memory, but they cannot access it at the same time. And because and there's two ways to deal with that. You can either have the video subsystem win and halt the CPU when it accesses the RAM. And that was the solution done on 8-bit computers, like the VIC-20 and the Commodore, I think. There's a time where when both the video chip and the CPU want access to the RAM, the video hardware wins. And that causes a slowdown because the CPU has to halt for one or more bus cycles. But the integrity of the display is maintained. IBM went the other way. When the CPU and the video hardware want to access the same RAM, the CPU wins. So it reads and writes the byte, and what the video hardware gets instead is garbage. So the video hardware is working fine. It's just not reading the actual video RAM byte. It's reading undefined random status bits. And I can certainly control, as you can see in this test, I can control where the snow appears, but I cannot control the nature of it. However, I sure am generating a lot of it. Let's see what we've got. Has anyone been able to play Uplink with 2 screens? Uplink? I'm not familiar with Uplink. I am quickly firing up Moby Games to see what... Oh, wrong. Wrong keyboard. What did I do? Okay, thankfully nothing. You know what? I'm going to put a nice... you know what? If you got... all right. For whoever is still part of the stream, I'm going to give in its last 30 minutes. Hey, it's Al from Al's Geek Lab. Hey, Al, how are you? Funny, I was lamenting that people past GMT 0 couldn't join. However, you have now looped through and come out the other side because you're in New Zealand. So thanks for joining. And guess what? If anyone is still here, I have a tiny little surprise for you. So this is a wonderful shot that I put into the CGA compatibility tester, and I did not draw this. This was drawn manually by the programmer and artist of 2 Macrocom games, Icon, The Quest for the Ring, and 7 Spirits of Ra. And I love those games because they tweak CGA, and they wrote a whole game tweaking it. And this was in a demo promoting that game, showing off this mode. And it's wonderful, but it's hand-drawn. Reinigni, of the same demo group that we did 88 miles per hour with, created a converter. I don't know if this converter is still out there, but if you have this converter, you can do this. And this is something I converted and edited and made it look good in this form. But yes, this is real CGA. This is all 16K. In a hacked up text mode, and boy, does that look beautiful, doesn't it? So, let me go back to some comments. Let's see. Indy 500 was... Oh, wait, no, we were looking for Uplink. What is Uplink? I'm going to very quickly look at Moby Games Uplink. I don't recall that game. It appears to be a game from 2001, so I'm not sure. Either you're referencing something that I'm misunderstanding it, or I don't know what you mean, so apologies. Indy 500 was never fun to stumble upon. Chances were no one had the manual, so you couldn't play it. Well, of course, you grabbed a cracked version. Indy 500 performs so well. I have no trouble running that as a demo while we think of other things to consult in our last half hour here. It's just great. And let's fire that up. And the ad-lib music in Indy 500 is also incredible. One of the few tunes Rob Hubbard did for the PC gaming space. I'm wearing my headphones so I can make sure that... All right. Well, sorry, it started up in PC speaker, but that's okay. I just want to run the demo. The demo, just first 3D production that I know of by David Kemmer of Papyrus Software, went on to create the IndyCar racing games. Loved doing it, and he innovated so much in this title. It's 3D that doesn't appear faked. Some of it's faked. Some of the car rotations are fixed. So he used fixed. Oh, I didn't start the. All right, I messed up. Let me try to get to the. Run me. Why is that ad lib? Yes, it is. Once again, let me check the audio real quick and make sure I can be audible. Yeah. There we go. That's better. You're right. This game does support composite CGA. I'm actually going to leave it like this. All right. Now, what if I just hit spacebar? Does that go into the demo? God, I hope so. So I really don't want to just let it run constantly with the music. The slowness of a 4 megahertz system. Oh, please go into the demo. Yes. Okay. It does support composite. But just to illustrate my point at how good this game was, I'm going to leave it like this because I know these frame rates aren't so great, but wait till it switches to the track view in about maybe 5 or 6 seconds. The fixed camera track view. There we go. I mean, I know that doesn't look. If you've never played 3D on a, unlike other 3D games on the PC, this one is just about playable, and that's amazing considering it's a fully 3D game with a level of detail management. You know, objects farther away have less polygons, automatic environment detail management. You know, if you have a faster system, the crowd and the clouds and the trees will pop in and out, frame rate permitting. You know, multiple camera angles. It's such a great game. This and interface are some of my favorite things to put onto a system and a new system. Anytime I'm restoring a system, that isn't a 4 megahertz system, I will always put on Interface or Indy 500 or something and just marvel at how well the 3D is programmed. Looking at more comments. Let's see. CP Rasu saying uplink was just an interesting thing that was done in game tech-wise. I'll go ahead and look it up. I think I don't know much about uplink, but the concept of what you're describing reminds me of the Windows game Virus. At least I think it was called Virus. Virus I think it was published by Surtech. I have it in the back, but I'm not going to leave the stream to go get it. Virus was a game that scanned your hard drive for personal files and installed programs, and then would implement those as assets in the game you were playing. So the whole point of it was like, you know, you were fighting a virus infecting your system, and as you flew around and did whatever you do in the game Virus, you'd see your own documents that you wrote, like on the walls or used as textures or something along those lines. And I thought that was kind of cool, but I wonder if that was, I don't know how, I don't think the game sold very well, but that was certainly a kind of a cool marketing gimmick. I have to look up and see what the uplink gimmick was. Nicola, can you just play Leisure Suit Larry? I could, but there's 25 minutes left in the stream and everybody's seen that. So I'm not going to do that. I'm sorry. Not only that, but the only version that would be worth running on this vintage hardware would be the original AGI version, which doesn't support AdLib without patches, without homebrew patches, and It does support composite CGA, but you gotta have the music too. Anyway, been there, done that. Everyone's seen Leisure Suit Larry. Not gonna do it. Sorry. Yes, and NASCAR. I'm sorry. Papyrus did IndyCar racing, and they also did NASCAR. And if you read Ken Williams's book that he published about the rise and fall of Sierra, he remembered loving the Papyrus acquisition. He let them stay in their own building, and he loved visiting them because it was so clear. He knew he had made the right choice, he writes, because every time he went there, they were like racing simulators, and they were playing games and playing the game that they were writing and playing it against each other. And he was clear they loved what they were doing, and they loved racing games, and they were not only good at it, but enthusiastic and motivated. He said Papyrus was, I believe he wrote that Papyrus was one of the best acquisitions he ever made, and I agree. I would love to interview David Kemmer and try to get more information on the creation of Indy 500. Coming up with level of detail. I think one of the he gave one tiny brief interview with only a few sentences where he said something along the lines of, I figured out that I could only draw 30 polygons, either a frame or a second. I'm going to have to say frame. He said he could only draw 30 polygons a frame to maintain decent speed. So he figured out level of detail to maximize those polygons. Like if you're going to draw 30 polygons, what are the best 30 to draw? And it's obviously more in the close stuff when the cars are close to you, and it's less when the cars are far away, so on. Virus the game. Thank you, Pirate Gamer Boy. Yeah, cool concept, doesn't play well. I kind of agree. Aw, Niccolo, you didn't have to sign up for Patreon, but I do appreciate doing so. I occasionally, when I have one of the things, now again, until April, I can't guarantee that there's going to be an awful lot of movement on Patreon right now. Usually a lot of behind the scenes of making the videos are there. Please feel free to scroll through my back catalog of posts there. I do post stuff there sometimes when I want an opinion from my supporters or suggestions, so feel free. And thank you for doing so. Oh, cool, Al. I didn't know you interviewed Ken. That's great. And glad to know that we're unified in our view of Papyrus. Nicola, you said GP series was great. Are you talking DOS or like later? And if you're talking DOS, were those the ones made by Jeff Crammond? I know Jeff Crammond did World Circuit. World Circuit, by the way, that's another amazing one. I can't run it on this system, but World Circuit, I don't know how Jeff Crammond did some of the stuff he did. World Circuit is a 3D racing game, similar to what you're seeing now, but of course much better and faster, that runs at perfectly adequate, decent speeds on the Atari ST and the Amiga. And then ported to DOS, it's like amazing. I had to watch footage of World Circuit running for about a good 5 to 10 minutes before I could figure out one of the tricks. Like I was staring at it. Sometimes you can stare at these things and you can see, based on rendering artifacts or rendering choices, how they're made. And in World Circuit, it finally dawned on me that the wheels, one of the cars came close enough to me that I could see the back wheel pixelate as it got bigger. And I was like, the wheels are sprites. I was like, oh my gosh, of course. And then very carefully, you can see that all the cars are made up of sprites. They look like 3D cars, but they're layers of sprites assembled, painter's algorithm assembled towards you, towards the camera. Brilliant. It's not only a brilliant concept to save time rendering the cars, but it's also brilliant from a creative way, because you can't just get that idea and make it work. Like you've got to work with your artist, or if you're the artist, you have to construct that idea in a way that it looks good. So it's not only cool technically, and it's cool artistically. Absolutely love that. World Circuit, aka Formula One Grand Prix. Thank you. Fantastic game. Duke over a modem. I regret I never played Duke or Doom multiplayer. I don't think I did. I did, however, play 6-player Descent on a local area network, and this was back when the cheapest cards we could find were the ones that were they weren't they didn't use RJ45 plugs. They used the old 10 base T. Is that right? I forget. I can't believe I'm it's been 3 hours of constant talking during the stream, and so my brain's a little scrambled. But they used ThinNet, right? So all the computers had to be on, and they all had to be connected via ThinNet before the network would work at all. And we all loaded Novell DOS 7 on our systems because that came with a free cheapy version of Novell NetWare. And that's how we played 6-player in this house, Descent, and it was glorious. It was fantastic, and really funny too, in that there wasn't enough desk space, table space, or outlet space for us to all be in the same area. So someone was in the kitchen and someone was upstairs, and it was utterly hilarious to blow somebody away and hear all the way from upstairs, "Bastard!" or from the kitchen, "Bastard!" You know. Like you weren't entirely sure who you were killing, but it was even funnier if they were not in the same room and you could hear them yelling from the other room. 10 base 2. Thank you very much, Kevin. God, yeah, ThinNet. That was the network at my second professional job. My first professional job, we did everything over serial and serial multiplexers. That is best not spoken of ever again. And my second professional job was at DePaul University, where we did everything through ThinNet and the vampire clips and everything. And I used to think to myself, we had, in high school, we had everything. We had a lab of IBMs connected via token ring. And if one computer was off, the whole network didn't work. If one computer was rebooted, the whole network didn't work. And I was just thinking, or no, maybe not rebooted, but if one computer was physically powered off, the network didn't work. And I remember thinking ThinNet was just it was the same thing. It was just so stupid. Personal NetWare, that's right. And we didn't know how to obtain or set up NetWare, but we all could pirate a copy of Novell DOS 7, which was essentially DR-DOS, but with the Novell stuff on top of it. And so that's how we did it. Let's see. Oh, Descent. Oh, you had the VR headset. I would love if someone could create a video. The VR, there's a guy on YouTube who doesn't post anymore, but he posted a really great video about that VR2, I think that's what it was called, headset with the thing that would come down over you like a shell, and it had, ear cups for the sound. And I don't know if there was any footage of someone playing a game like that, but that would be really cool to compare 1995 era 3D. I had a cheap pair of shutter glasses that I believe only worked with, I believe, a custom modified version of Wolf 3D, of Wolfenstein. And that was it. So I gave up early. Couldn't afford the good stuff. Oh, see, we've got some graybeards or potential graybeards here in the stream. They're quoting out the exact homage and making Terminators. I was so happy when DePaul's networking team was separate from the team that I was in, so I had nothing to do with the networking. But boy, did I rejoice when they said everybody's going to 10 base T. Everything's going to RJ45 connectors. No more vampire clamps. Good stuff. Well, 15 minutes. And just in case anyone, I think I I don't think I have any like amazing surprises or anything like that to stick in the stream at this point. If anyone has a request, please let me know. But until then, I'm going to just probably start randomly going through some interesting things in my demos folder, which is not a real demo scene demos folder. It contains all of the stuff that was very demo-like before demos actually existed. Now, I think this has sound. Let me make sure it's not too loud. Decidedly non-real-time 3D. Thought it was cute how the words went onto the screen and then they were italicized later. There we go. I'm going to quiet that a bit. There we go. I believe this was made in 1985. Maybe 1986. And it's just some dumb little thing. But I remember being fascinated by these. There was someone breakdancing in ASCII stick figure. There was, at the beginning of the stream, I showed artificial art. So when the stream is over, feel free to rewind and take a look at artificial art. There is a rotating 3D program, which I can show off in a second. All these little things, I've always been fascinated by them. I think it was inevitable that I would be involved with the demo scene in some way. Stun Runner. I'm sorry, Null, but although Stun Runner technically runs, it is measured in seconds per frame, not frames per second, so I won't be doing that. DOS Nostalgia, Anatoly, you showed up. Oh my goodness, I am so happy to see you, and I am very sorry that you did not have a chance to participate earlier, but maybe I will do another one of these. I'm very glad you could make it a little bit. There's a whole bunch of stuff to listen to in this episode that might interest you, so I highly suggest you go and check it in about 14 minutes when I stop it. You can listen to the whole thing. Kicking yourself for not picking up a working VFX one. That's the name of it. Thank you. Yeah, I couldn't... the VFX one was still just shutter glasses, though, wasn't it? I don't recall. But yeah, just even for the coolness factor. I mean, come on. Just make another Cyberpunk 2077 meme with the VFX one headset on. Posing or something. CP Rasu, the male... Okay. The mall near me had a VR setup with a really strange Amiga attached to it, Dactyl Nightmare running on it. They charged $10 a minute. Now, were you in the Chicagoland area? Because that's where I saw it. And I didn't play because I also thought it was crazy expensive. But there was a setup in... Damn, what was it? Oh, I can't remember the name of the mall now. North Pier. North Pier or Navy Pier? There was a North Pier and there was a Navy Pier in Chicago. And one of them is gone. And I think it's North Pier. I think North Pier is gone. North Pier had it. And they had Dactyl Nightmare. And I remember looking at it thinking it was really cool, but then also wondering why the frame rate was so bad. And then I went back a year later trying to play it, and they had replaced all of it with those Robotech, like Mech Warrior, you know what I mean? Like Robotech, Mech Warrior, you know, the fighting robots pods, and you sat in them. And each one was running its own Amiga, 4000, very expensive setup, and it rendered textured polygons incredibly slowly. Like it looked great, and then it was nearly unplayable. And all the pods were hooked up to a 286 in a closet that would synchronize the gameplay between all of them. It handled the communication and the start of the game and the reporting of the high scores onto the high score table on some CRT somewhere. I forget the name of those. I remember it being a really great concept at the time, and I was like amazed at like, oh, there's an Amiga in there. No wonder it looks so great. But you're kind of kidding yourself. I mean, if you actually looked at it, I think the frame rate was even slower than Dactyl Nightmare. I'm glad Anatoly has been here just at work. Perfectly fine. Faces Triss, playable on a PC. Yeah, I can imagine. I could by the time I could fire it up, but I don't have it loaded, and I don't know. And by the time I fired it up and started playing it and tried to play Faces Triss, we'd be out of time. We've got 10 minutes left, but I have no doubt that it runs just fine. I mean, it's animating these tiny little slices. I don't understand Faces Triss. Maybe I should give it another shot. I own it. I have the manual. I just remember every time booting it up thinking like the pieces I want never come down, and then I lose. So I must not understand how to play the game. No, you were at Arizona and Metro Center. Well, cool. Well, that's cool that they had these places in more than one place. So it was definitely North Pier in Chicago, and North Pier is now long gone. Only Navy Pier exists. 132 by 320 resolution for both eyes. That's so hilarious. But yeah, no, it wasn't good. So let's move on to something else that's small and cute. What is FBC? Oh, and all these versions are me optimizing FBC. Oh no, sorry. Those are dumb experiments. I remember what those are. Ooh, Hypercube. So this Hypercube thing is someone writing a Hypercube viewer. This is the cross your eyes and view it in 3D, and I'm going to do this is the 16-bit fixed point math version, which, here, just to help you, if anyone wants to actually try viewing a Hypercube in 3D, let's go full screen. So you're supposed to cross, just like all those other random dot stereograms, you're supposed to cross your eyes until you're seeing one combined image in the center with the two other images off to the side. And this program claims to draw a hypercube, which is a four-dimensional object, in some way that you can still see it. It is doing a very poor job of rotating. It needs to rotate around another axis. Why isn't it doing it? It does eventually. But yeah, full screen here. It should be easy for you guys to cross your eyes and take a look at it. This is a lot less interesting. Why is it not rotating around the axis? Oh well, look for tumble. And now I can't stop it. Okay, cool. All right, I managed to stop it. That was weird. All right, let's go back. The 3D thing is cool. This was just some very small little thing done by someone in Canada in 1987. It renders out a wireframe in 3D, saves the bitmaps, and then it plays them all back. And seeing how that worked gave me a new insight into how animation on the PC is done. Because this is slow enough you can see it drawing. But now that it's saved all of the frames, it's just slamming video memory back into video memory to play it back. So this is the day Teenage Jim learned about caching and flicker-free animation and other things. Nicola, it was probably more than 30 years ago. No, it wasn't more than 30 years ago. It was more than 20 years ago, but that's okay. It's funny how, as we age, our brains are organs, and our organs start to deteriorate, as is the natural process of aging. And it gets harder and harder to commit new information to memory as it does with short-term memory. But the long-term memory stays put. So I think that's why nostalgia is a thing that exists, because the older you get and the more frustrated you get with living your daily life, you still have very vivid memories of your youth, your teenage years, your early 20s. And So yeah, check that out. That actually, I mean, this is a real 4 megahertz system, and looking at it, you're like, oh my gosh. Well, of course, it's all animation, but very cool. One of my favorite pre-demo scene, demo-like programs. Pirate Gamer Boy, ever heard of Fantavision? Boy, have I heard it. I used it on the Apple II, and was fascinated by it. I would go to a friend's house just to use it and ignore him, something I'm not proud of. Stafford and or Dana. I'm sorry I did that. I won't mention their last name, but they were brothers. I would go there to run Fanavision and also Dazzle Draw. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Later, I got the PC version, pirated, and I worked at a Korean computer company in 1987. And one of their side businesses was a taxi business, and they wanted to present their taxi software at a show, and they hired me to make a Fantavision animation, like a presentation, like a slideshow with animation in it, of their taxi management software. And I did. So I have not only used Fanavision, I've used it in a commercial setting, which is quite silly. And I'm actually glad I don't have those files anymore because they're just terrible. And then 2 years ago, I acquired Fanavision for real. So I now have a real physical Fanavision package back there as part of my collection. About 4 minutes left. And I don't know how to get out of this, which is a shame because I would love to run something else. All right, well, we're going to hit Control-Delete, and I will end with one of my favorite graphic-like programs that displays a 3D Mars landscape that isn't the 3D Mars program, the voxel program of the 1990s. If you have questions or requests, now's the time. We've got about 4 minutes left. Al, yet more of what you were saying in our interview makes sense. If it didn't make sense the first time, I apologize. Oh, exercising caching. Oh, well, see, there you go. What Al is referring to is his video, Back to the BBS, the demo scene. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. And then not because I'm in it, but because it is interesting. One of my favorite programming quotes is by Terhi Matheson, who is a world-class assembler programmer. And his quote is, "All programming can be viewed as an exercise in caching." And if you think that's the kind of thing where if you don't understand it now, you will later. Al's Geek Lab link. Well, Nicola, I think if you click on Al's Geek, do a shift click or an alt click or something on Al's Geek Lab's username, it should take you to his channel, and you can do that. Oh, CorelDRAW. God, CorelDRAW. That was fun to play with. That was the first illustration-like program I think I ever played with. All right, let's end on some Mars landscapes. Oh, which one are you? I can't remember. I think it's this one. Yep. MFract. Displays mountains created using fractal geometry. For quick starts, try MFract 231027. Actually, I think I'm just going to run it because I think it picks random stuff. MFract is interesting to me personally because it has a bug. And every so often I will disassemble it and try to find and fix the bug, but I can't. But, oh shoot, you're still doing... Oh shoot, is that not what I was thinking? Oh, what is it? There's one that runs... Oh, I may have the wrong one. There's one that runs constantly and constantly display. All right, well, you know what? We're going to go out on a 3D box. This is... there's no indication as to who wrote this. I believe this is a very early COM file. I believe it has an original file date of 1982. And this is all it does. And I think it's great. The 3D is obviously very rough, but the fact that it is also drawing and rotating PC on one side, and the fact that it is faking hidden wireframe removal is also great. I say faking because this object is a convex object, which means that there's no concave surface in there. Convex objects can be culled by their... I'm tired and I'm not making much sense right now. The fact that they're convex leads to an optimization where you can quickly cull the front sides from the back sides. David Braben gave a great technical talk on Elite at Game Developers Conference, I want to say 7 years ago. Look in the GDC Vault archives for that talk about Elite. There's wonderful technical information in it. So, ancient file, yeah, 1982. I would exit back to DOS and poke around it, but it locks up the system. And we are out of time, and I am almost out of voice. I want to thank everybody who joined the stream. This was a fun experiment. It was really nice to get some interesting historical questions and words of encouragement. I want to thank everybody who subscribes to the channel. If you have any suggestions whatsoever for topics you would like me to cover, solutions to some of the problems that I mentioned at the beginning of the stream, some of the challenges I have with creating content for the channel, etc., please feel free to mention them. I am all ears. Please do so in the comments of this video so I can come back and refer to it. And that is just about it. So I'm going to try to stop the stream now. Yeah, there it is. Okay.